Well, we might not be super early, but god damn it, we're on time. Just in the nick of it, we are here. Good evening, everybody. Happiest of time zones. I'm gonna give a big old double freedom rocket to the nap. I beat it, just barely. I don't want to get super arrogant because that thing has claimed more nights than I like to admit. But we also know that, hey, Ocean Gale, my guy, I am escaping immediately for fear of spoilers. Happy final day of Reverie. Thank you for the 21 months, bro. I appreciate it. I am very, very much looking forward to watching you go through this, dude. Jay, what's good? Pod, Dusk, Notification, Ethan, Super Duper Handsome Dan, Night Blight, Arcadia, Phil, Burt, everybody. It's great to see you. Yo.
Give me a hell yeah.
Let's go, dog.
What?
Here we are. This is it. Yeah, about eight alarms later, we made it. Up and at 'em. Dude, Trails Wave, I got you all day. Oh my goodness. Hey, guys, gals, friends, new and old, everybody. I just want to say thank you very, 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 very much. As always, man. Here we go. Hey there, YouTube. This is it. We are to see what lies beyond the Reverie. And, well, golly gee. Hey there, Grumpy. Good to see you, man. This is it. This will likely be our last night here together in Reverie. Once we get official word, we'll make plans. Once we know when Kuro is coming out, hopefully March 2024 next year. Yeah, I got the Chug Jugs good to go. I didn't make any tea because I was unconscious, so I just have to deal. We successfully gaslit Neo into thinking this was the end. Mission accomplished. Rip roaring and ready to go. So, once we get the official word when Kuro is going to be dropping, we'll circle back to this. We'll do this again, just like we did 3 and 9 for Reverie. We'll do Beyond the Reverie. When we get the official word. So, lubricate my throat, dog. Choice of words. Oh my god. Yeah, we should be A-okay. Fingers crossed. I mean, we're just gonna grip it. Hang on. Renaro was good. Philly! What's up, my man? Still avoiding spoilers. Wanted to say, hey, Bull, good to see you, man. Hope you've been enjoying it. Kenshi, what's good, my guy? When am I starting Reverie Part 2? Dog, this is gonna be it. Doing well. Sky, it's a pleasure. Prepare your throat for this, though. I've heard. I mean, let's do it. All right? No time like the present. Let's get after it. Beyond the Reverie. I keep getting chills about it, though. There are but minute fragments of memories drifting in an endless ocean, memories of what will be in the near future. Could they be shadows of the tangled threads woven by Elysium? Or perhaps faded illusions that slip through the cracks of time and space? There are none who know the answer. What the fuck is this, man? What is this? Another Hot Springs Paradise, an unconventional student, or return to the garden? Start from the top? Okay. January, year 1208 of the Septian calendar. Between two great mountains at the tip of a Calvardian basin sits Long Lie. The town is known for two things, being the eastern entrance to the Republic and its exceptional hot springs, Through these enticing factors, does it continue to welcome tourists hailing from both home and abroad. Yet today, it served guests quite unlike its many unseasoned visitors. These had come from another renowned hot springs paradise situated in the northern reaches of Erebonia. Yo, family getaway? Yeah? Yeah, a little bit of a brain fog. Bear with me. Sorry. Love you guys. The depth of flavor in the food here is just exquisite. Agreed, the Phoenix Wings food is certainly nothing to sneeze at, but I have my doubts the chef could replicate dishes this unique in taste. The Bishan Inn's reputation continues to precede itself. Baron Teo and Lady Lucia Schwarzer were sampling the inn's culinary delights, spirits high and stomachs filling fast. Their daughter, Elise, sat next to them, her spirit a bit lower by comparison as her brows furrowed with concern. I'm sure its luxuries come with just an equally luxurious price tag, and there's 4 of us, so even 2 nights must have cost a small fortune. Upon realizing what she said, she shook her head. I didn't mean to damper the mood. I know we have the money, but all my budgeting as student council president has made a terrible habit of me seeing the numbers in everything. Her older brother, Reen, couldn't help but let out a chuckle. Then the budget buster in you will likely know how much we saved because we're not here as paying customers. We were invited by the owners personally. They said they wanted to get to know us since we run similar establishments, so here we are, and we'll be inviting them to Ymir sooner than later, of course. Right, Dad? Oh, absolutely. Add this to the list of boons coming from our countries finally coming to terms with one another. The Republic is reveling in unheard of levels of prosperity, and the relations between our people are more active and festive than ever. I, for one, welcome any opportunity to further foster the friendship. The Baron took another healthy sip of his baijiu before continuing. Sorry, words. Friendship over fighting, I say. Such a shame that the world tends to overcomplicate that simple concept. Seeing her husband's glass was almost empty, Lucia filled it to the brim while adding her own thoughts. That's all the more reason why we need to make the most of this invitation and enjoy ourselves to the fullest. Their children nodded in agreement. And even that aside, there's no reason to spoil a family vacation when we so rarely have time to take them. Oh, I read about some unusual sweet dishes worth trying here. Would you like to share some with me, Reen? In a bit. I'm thinking of taking another soak in the hot springs, so I might be in the mood for something sweet after. The food here is delicious, but as far as I'm concerned, the hot springs are the real star of the show. That's my boy right there. The ruling lord of the hot springs paradise would never let a good discussion about them pass him by. Excuse me. He was as fond of their quality and soothing effects as Reen, enthusiasm undeniably apparent from the warmth of his tone to the width of his smile. Their medical springs happen to be a favorite of mine. I can't help but be fascinated by them time and time again. I can believe it. I've always known about them, but here's the first place I've been able to feel the way they warm you right to your core. Think we could make one available at the Phoenix Wings? It'd be worth a try, but that comes with its own obstacles. For as many problems as Teo expressed in practical terms, Reen held just as many proposed solutions. The conversation grew more involved by the minute, leaving the ladies of the house to pleasedly bask in their glow and continue enjoying the meal before them. All four felt the same, that it had been too long since they could enjoy each other's company, but the wait had been well worth it. Agua, thanks, dude. Sure shall. Take a little breather in between. That night, after indulging in his post-dinner soak in the springs and telling his family he was going for a walk, Reen departed the inn. All right, let's do this. He took in a deep breath, the crisp night air of Long Lai filling his lungs. The hot springs were an excellent bonus to his trip, to be sure, but it was not the real reason he agreed to visit. He had come in search of Yun Kafai, the famed sword hermit. Master Kafai... Dude, this fucking song, dude, too. Wowzers. Master Kafai was the founder of the Eight Leaves One Blade School, of which Reen was a practitioner, and though now over 70 years old, he was still regarded as one of the strongest combatants on the continent. They had not met since before Reen's enrollment at Thor's. Many a letter was exchanged during the 4 years that followed, but even they had stopped after Reen earned the right to call himself a Divine Blade over a year ago. There was so very much he wished to discuss with his master. What he had learned in his 4 years of training, what had transpired since becoming a Divine Blade, the true meaning behind being the final blade to master the Eight Leaves. There's plenty I'd like to ask that have nothing to do with swordsmanship too. All these questions, all impossible to answer without first knowing the whereabouts of a single individual. Even a senior practitioner like Cassius Bright claimed ignorance, having received not a single update from their old master. He had always been an elusive but traceable sort, but wherever he was now, he was next to impossible to track. That was until word of a blade master being sighted in Long Lai reached Reen's ears. The man held a fondness for the town's specialties, those being the hot springs and its fragrant tea leaves, making the sighting worthy of particular note. He also knew from the letters before they stopped that he intended to journey eastward, making Long Lai one of the more plausible stopping points. The word came to him just as the Schwarzers were invited to stay at the inn during their New Year vacation. Reen's instincts told him the timing was a little too fortunate, but with how vague the lead was, it would most likely result in him leaving the same as he had arrived. While he had not discussed the rumor being key to his traveling here, his family seemed to sense it was more than a simple pleasure trip for him. I know Dad would have a great time catching up with him, but I don't want to get his hopes up for nothing. These thoughts in mind, Reen made his way through the night streets. I'm soaking this in. Eris, what's good, dude? Gandalf, thanks, dude. Water breaks often. Long Lai's architecture was distinctly Eastern, making it a uniquely intriguing sight among most of Calvert's towns and cities. This was not to say it was similar to Crossbell's East Street. With subtle color paired with dignified beauty, every wall and stone exuded the traditional concepts of wabi-sabi. Sorry for pronunciations, you guys know it's not my strong suit. One look was enough to understand the region was rich with history. This quiet charm would give way to constantly lively evenings, where tourists both westward and farther eastward were greeted to stalls dedicated to the hot springs and more. This too held a traditional sort of charm. Reen asked several merchants if they had any information pertaining to the whereabouts of his master, somewhat sheepishly purchasing a number of souvenirs from their stalls to keep himself from being a nuisance. They, he justified, would make excellent gifts for his friends, his co-workers, as well as his students. Just it. It's just like those moments where like it does set in that, you know, this is going to be our last night in Reverie for the time being. And Falcom just has this way of knowing exactly when to place the needle drop, and it hits all kinds of hard, it hits all kind of heavy, and I love it. I can't believe it's almost time for them to graduate. I might be more emotional about theirs than I was for mine. For the first time, Reen would get to experience what it was like for the young birds he had taken under his wing for 2 years to finally leave the nest. Their first year had been eventful, to say the least. What had started as a problem class full of disagreements and mounting tension had slowly grown into one of compassion and understanding for one another. It was with each new discovery about themselves and every new ordeal the world sought to impose upon them that they grew not only as individuals but as a team. He hoped this period would remain as much a meaningful part of their lives as it would always be for him. The months before the Retributive Tower's appearance held many a trial, making the 10 months that followed in its shadow pass all too quickly. In that time, Reen students continued to mature, building on everything they accomplished in their first year to prepare and settle into their desired future. Indeed, whether it was by overcoming their demons or by learning to work with them in a healthier fashion, their paths up till now had been well worn. And, while they may have had to rest from time to time, he was proud to be a part of why their steps continued to face forward. Proud, but also lonely at the thought of saying goodbye. As their second year drew to a close, lacking in grandiose events, but still rewarding in its own right, it was this mixture of emotions that bore conflict within him most. Can't believe I'll be going through it all over again next year and even the year after that. Hell of a career I chose to pursue, huh? He didn't know when he stopped walking. Realizing this, he resumed his search, paying respect and mind to the many generous of educators who came before him. No matter where he looked, he could not find Master Kafai in Longlai. It was, however, still too early to say whether the trip had been in vain, as he had at least caught an unverified report of the Blade Master being seen in the mountains to the south. Wandering such terrain at night wasn't going to be ideal, but Reen was already firm on spending the next day with his family. Tonight it would have to be. Making a brief stop to the inn to tuck his souvenirs somewhere secure, he then departed for his new destination. The mountains' winding, half-beaten trails would be more treacherous at night, but they were not off limits as such. The key, Reen knew, would be to not rely on sight alone. His senses of hearing and smell, perhaps even touch, were going to be equally vital in the hours ahead. You know what? I'm just gonna leave the cap off. Smart, right? Next to the electronics. You only live once, as the children say. Calling upon his experience and intellect to heighten all 5 senses, he took in his surroundings in full. This really takes me back to training in the mountains. To call the experience training would imply his time being one of simple tutelage between student and master, but it equated to so much more. The danger then was far worse than it was now, with some days requiring him to set foot in highly dangerous territories just to find the day's food to survive. It sounds like the Kunlun Mountains may have been used for a similar exercise a long time ago. Reen was certain to think on the information gained during his search as he continued along the trail. Searching for evidence of human activity in an environment like this was not a difficult task. Humans always leave something indicative of their presence behind that no wild creature could, be it a long dead fire, footprints, or traces of going on the hunt. One need only follow the light to lead to their source. Reen did so, advancing with the caution instilled in him by both his old master and hunting enthusiasts of a father. They soon led him precisely to clear evidence that a human had been in the area, though the evidence itself was far from what he expected. Remains of a camp? No, this is. It didn't look like it had been left by martial artists in training or roaming hunters, but the most peculiar thing was that there were multiple sites like the first, all evenly spaced from one to the next. It was as though something was being measured. Maybe this is from a group of scholars doing field research, but it seems too large in scale for that. There was nothing more to be found here, Reen advanced. Soon after, he found another unusual amount of evidence. It's like someone forced their way through here in a car, or more like hacked open a wide path enough for a car to pass through. All further inspection here suggested that whoever was responsible had given up on this endeavor, leading him to wonder if they somehow found success elsewhere. And if they did, why had they done this at all? The question pestered him. If there was anywhere to clear wide paths, the remote depths of the mountains clearly were not it. But instinct told him he was only a step away from discovering the answer. If I keep following this trail a little farther... At this thought, Reen sensed someone approaching. Dark Fantasy Realms, love you, bub. Good to see you. One person, two people, yes, there were two, and it was clear they were aware of his presence as well. Only for a fleeting second did he think they might be the ones responsible for the strange trails, but a deadly tension that now thickened the air told him there were no simple scholars. He felt them draw near, the night veiling themselves well, and then he felt them stop. How about you show yourselves? He spoke without placing his hand on his tachi, signifying to those watching that he had no desire to fight. Their silhouettes then silently emerged from the darkest shadows of the mountains. They looked very much like the shinobi of the East he had heard about, their forms clad from top to bottom in black garments and their faces fully obscured. Excuse me. Itchy eye. Yo. This is badass, dude. I see your insight poses a threat after all, Divine Blade of the Empire. The contract with our client has yet to begin, but we will make an exception for one among their list of dangerous persons. The silhouettes then charged. They caught him completely off guard, drawing short, straight blades to attack him as they narrowed in. Reen's eyes widened in surprise, but nearly in that same moment, he was in a fighting stance, hand over his still-sheathed tachi. Fifth form, Morning Moon. No! He perceived the direction of his foes' attacks to evade them, then mounted a counterattack of his own. All it took was that instant to repel their assault and leave them vulnerable. Ordinarily, this would be the time to take the offensive, but all Reen could do was stare at the two with disbelief, like my hands are just fucking clenched. Like... The thought entered my mind as I saw you move, but now that we've crossed blades, he paused, the disbelief in his eyes giving way to a more intent gaze. Are you practitioners of the Eight Leaves School? Another pause, this time from the silhouettes before answering as though they were well aware the question was coming. No, though we do possess ties to the school. We are of the Ikaruga? Sorry. Practitioners of the Black God One Blade School? The what? Reen was left stunned. The two Ikaruga held their blades horizontally, ready to thrust them forward at any moment. It was as though they wanted to make clear that while they had been caught off guard once, he would not be so fortunate twice. Reen responded by assuming the middle stance with his Tachi. But just as the sides were only a beat away from engaging in battle, what could only be described as a black cyclone roared from the darkness at such speed that it seemed certain to slice anything it touched. Its appearance caught Reen by surprise more than the initial attacks by the silhouettes. He had not suspected an attack from that angle, that distance, or even that moment. His enemies, on the other hand, did not so much as flinch at the sight. The approaching blade, over an arge and a half in length, was heading directly for Reen's back. He couldn't possibly dodge it now. Perhaps he should have noticed. Perhaps it was impossible to notice. Whatever the answer, the divine blade of the Empire would soon fall. The silhouettes waited for his final moments to be, convinced of no other fate in his future. When Reen spun his body in a full circle, applying the intensity built into his Tachi from the motion to swing, the blow made was weighted yet precise, shifting the incoming blade to a new direction without mitigating its near overpowering force. This technique was an application of the first form, Helix. There was no greater course in the moment than to use it to redirect the attack without it ever making direct contact. The spinning blade was now significantly off its intended course, but Reen slashed at it again, birthing a shockwave that further shifted its path. The blade went flying hairs to the right of the direction it had come from. A hand was there to deftly catch it midair. Bro. This is some fucking stuff already, dude. I'm not gonna go on a super long tangent here, okay? I hope that with this being the epilogue of sorts of Reverie moving us into Kuro, I hope that they choose to make this into like a drama CD. You know what I'm saying, for Kuro? Like, if 3 and 9 is to Reverie, I already hope that this is to what Kuro is. Like, that's what I'm really hoping already. Excuse me. You may have only recently taken the title, but you are worthy of being called a Divine Blade all the same. You use the unclouded eye well. From this hand emerged a new figure from the darkness. While he was clad in similar garments to the silhouettes, something about his presence was much more inspired by comparison. His musculature was thoroughly discernible beneath his body-covering fortified suit. His every movement, however slight, reflected a complete lack of hesitation. And the faint light of his eyes, visible through his mask, projected no emotion whatsoever. The man possessed the aura of a true warrior, one projected only by those who have fought more battles than was possible to count. Fall back. He is too formidable a foe for you to handle. The silhouette slid into the darkness in an instant. Only the new arrival was left to face Reen. I need to know, who are you and why did you attack me? Our contract forbids the disclosure of such information. You will leave this place now, fledgling Divine Blade. The tone was not one of advice nor one of an order. It was as if the man were stating a fact, his calmness veiling an undertone of malice that told Reen what would happen if he did not do as told. I'm afraid I can't do that without an explanation. Not when I haven't found what I'm looking for yet. I understand. Then, there was no longer anything to discuss. All they could do was battle. I, Kurogane of the Rogetsu School, shall be your opponent. Kurogane stood at attention, the large blade he had thrown before now pointed. I'd have rather settled this with words, but I can see that's not an option. Reen sighed, taking his own stance in turn. Then Reen Schwarzer, master of the 8 Leaves, 1 Blade School, 7th Form, shall be yours. The Divine Blade moved instantly. The bizarre weapon Kurogane wielded was less akin to a sword and more 4 equally sized blades arranged in the shape of a cross, their bases connecting at a single point. That he could direct this large weighted shuriken as though it was a simple child's toy spoke volumes about how strong he was. Still, even it was not infallible, for it was not one to be ideally used in close-range combat. Kurogane appeared to have no other key weapons on hand either, meaning that if Reen could force him to fight where he would be at his most disadvantageous, he would very likely come out of this the victor. This was what he had in mind when choosing to act first. 2nd Form, Gale. He closed the gap between them, drew his blade, and made a wide swing towards his opponent in the blink of an eye. Kurogane blocked the blow with ease. That, however, meant nothing in the larger scheme of things. Reen knew well this man's capabilities. So long as the gap between them was closed, and it was, he considered the attack a success. But just as he thought he would be able to push onward and overpower his foe by mounting a newly fierce assault, Kurogane had split his 2 cross-shaped shuriken in half. The ease at which he did made it clear this was intended by design. He can dual wield double sabers? There was no hiding his shock. In the West, double sabers were seen as relics from the Dark Ages that were difficult to utilize. Kuro was the only person Reen knew who was competent with one, and only one. Holy smokes, man, this is fucking kick-ass. The skill it would take to use 2 was almost too difficult to fathom. His surprise created an opening that Kurogane was not going to let pass unexploited. Possessing twin 2-ended blades allowed the shinobi to perform considerably more strikes than Reen, giving him no chance to push back. Steel sparked as their swords clashed. Kurogane was dominant for some time, but he could do nothing to bolster his advantage. With strike and spark after strike and spark, the advantage was moving back to Reen. This was in part due to him being used to fighting this weapon that defied rationale, but it was also because he had been given the time to find what he was looking for, the perfect range in which to attack. Double sabers were forged with a shorter reach than they appeared to have, something inevitable due to their handle being in the middle. It could have been because he also used them as shuriken, but the length of Kurogane's sabers were even shorter than Kuro's, meaning Rin would have to adjust with the longer length of his blade. He measured patiently, staying only just out of Kurogane's reach, and evading the onslaught by a hair's breadth each time prior to countering. It was calculated quickly thanks to Kurogane's frequent, rapid attacks, meaning all Rin had to do now was wait for the right moment. This moment would come in the form of his opponent showing impatience for this stalled battle, driving him to take an unneeded step forward. Rin evaded the strike expertly, instantly returning it with an upward diagonal slash. The forceful swing of his tachi made contact with the handle of Kurogane's own swung weapon, knocking it clean out of his hand. Rin dashed forward to make use of this veiled opportunity, but after only a flicker of bewilderment, Kurogane moved to deny him. He blocked Rin's attack with the Double Saber still in his possession, then hurled a hidden kunai with his free hand, jumping backward a significant distance while doing so. Very good, Divine Blade of the Eight Leaves. You may pale to the skills of our princess, but you without a doubt deserve your reputation. Princess? Rin's intonation when unanswered as Kurogane, took a notably different stance than before. I shall demonstrate my respect for your skill with my first technique. This put Rin staunchly on guard. Senses heightened, he focused every nerve in his body, fixing his eye on whatever was to come of Kurogane, who was now gone. Nothing remained where Rin's opponent had just stood. He hadn't taken his eyes off him, never eased himself for a moment, yet Kurogane was nowhere to be seen. How? Had he moved that quickly? Was it some kind of spatial translocation? But there were no signs to indicate either one. Was it that he never moved at all and was still there, sight unseen? No, that wasn't it either. The Double Saber Rin had repelled to the ground was also gone. I can still sense him, so he hasn't gone far. Rin suppressed the panic welling up within, honing his senses a second time. That was when another black cyclone swirled toward him from the shadows. He half expected something of this nature, so with little deviation, he was able to deflect it as he did the first time. The attack indicated that Kurogane had reassembled his shuriken after recovering its lost half so he could throw it again. It also indicated, together with the slight changes in his surroundings, where he was now positioned. Rin needed a little more time to know where he was for certain. But ahead of making a solid conclusion, the cyclone came at him yet again from a new angle. That was fast. Though he blocked this attack as well as the last before he could fully correct his posture, the next cyclone approached. The gap between was getting shorter and shorter. There was another, the time was shorter, and another, shorter. What the fuck, dude? Soon, these assorted smaller cyclones were seemingly growing into a grand storm of death, with Rin trapped at its center, a blended grand storm of death. Pardon. This doesn't feel like I'm being attacked by a single person. Did he make phantom copies of himself? He had no idea from where the next cyclone would form, and by the time he located it, the next one was ready. Even the unclouded eye wasn't going to be enough for him to deduce Kurogane's location. He had been able to repel every blade that met with his so far, but that was growing increasingly difficult. I didn't want to use it, but I'm not sure I have a choice. Well aware that doing so would place him in danger, Rin took his mind off the battle. He gave up blocking and evading attacks, dedicating the bare minimum of his focus to not sustaining lethal blows and focusing his mind inward. He focused on the power that he had long cultivated inside of him, the power he had feared, loathed, and rejected. The power he now relied on, desired, and nearly surrendered himself to. The power he faced with his loved ones at his side, making it a true part of himself. With his mind clear as day, he unleashed his full strength. Enlightened spirit unification! He imbued his Tachi with the great power surging out of him, crying out as he did so. In spinning his body forcibly around to create a blade circle around him, the energy released by his Tachi repelled all forthcoming shuriken with ease, and with them, Kurogane's phantom copies lurking in the darkness faded to nothing. With that, there you are, he charged toward Kurogane. The man was thoroughly overwhelmed by Rin's sudden counterattack, throwing him completely off balance. There was nothing he could do to repel what would come next. It's time to settle this. Rin swung his Tachi downward while pouring all of his might into a final single strike. But just as the two felt the battle was coming to an end, Zeroth form, duality. Accompanied with a voice as beautiful as a bell was a slash tearing through the sky, its color so black it threatened to eclipse the moon. It effortlessly stopped Rin's weapon from reaching its target. But that wasn't all. What? With a high-pitched metallic sound, Rin's beloved Tachi was sundered cleanly into... Princess? Kurogane was also taken back by this new arrival. I heard what was happening from both our scouts. You could have invited me to join the fun instead of keeping it all to yourself. The words as she chided Kurogane indicated dissatisfaction, but the music of her tone betrayed her excitement. Rin made to see who this mysterious figure was. Oh. Who are you? And the sight of her alone took his breath away. I mean, it definitely caught me off guard, and this is nothing but a fucking black and white silhouette. She was young, wearing a fortified suit that looked to be a marriage of classical and modern Eastern styles, with long, silver hair that almost appeared to glow in the pale moonlight. Her age was likely close to Rin's, perhaps a little younger, with well-defined features that still held traces of adolescence, pairing strikingly in contrast to the empty void behind her eyes. There was the air of a young noblewoman who had been sheltered from impurities all her life, and the stench of a baleful warrior who had bathed in the blood of countless lives. How she was both and neither at once, Rin could not understand, but it was this very quality that made her all the more captivating and dangerous. Yo, his Tachi is no more. In the woman's left hand was a large black engraved blade that threatened to freeze him for daring a glance at it. No doubt it was what halved Rin's Tachi moments ago. What What did? Reen fumbled for the words as he clutched the useless handle tightly in his hand. The fair-haired woman only smiled as she looked upon him. Your weapon was very fine, but it was never any match for my friend, I'm afraid. She spun the black blade in her hands around gently before holding it up toward the night sky to seemingly display it with pride. It wasn't hard to see why she would boast about possessing such a weapon. He had seen many a blade of historical significance, but instinct told him that hers was better than any of those. The blunt side featured an intricate design of deep gray that, while he could not discern its meanings there and then, he knew was nothing less than a work of art. There was an aura about it, one cold as ice, that seemed to reject its worldly surroundings, making it capable of cutting through anything it so desired. It came in company with a beautiful hilt of deep red and contrasted its body without feeling out of place. This juxtaposition was, in a sense, much a reflection of its wielder, with their two opposing natures being distinctive yet also as one. Reen thought as he observed. Her blade was clearly something special, but that alone did not explain the strength behind her attack. He had never heard of the technique she used, but it was certainly connected to the 8 leaves in some way. The skill she showed in executing it made her equal to a divine blade. Bro. He was so fixated as these thoughts rushed through his mind that he was only brought out by her sudden laughter. I didn't think I'd ever meet you here. I wonder if our old master is behind guiding us to the same place. Or if it's just a happy coincidence. Wait. The manner in which she spoke had a familiarity with Reen, gave him a theory. That technique you just used was really something. Consider me intrigued. It's put you a league above more interesting than our senior practitioners. So he was right. Are you? But before he could hear what he already knew, she turned away, refusing to let him finish the question. He isn't here, so why don't you run on back to your family? Go and make the most of your vacation. I'm not crying, I just had this, like, stuffy thing going on. Just don't let your skill with a blade slip. The world will need it again one day. She spoke with a certain satisfaction as she pointed down to the other half of his broken blade, and then she leapt high, seemingly disappearing on the other side of the moon. Reen could only stare, dumbfounded, as she vanished. He couldn't even speak. Kurogane left with her. Bro, what? Also, by the way, his, like, casual attire, whatever this is, like, I'm digging it. That doesn't look like his instructor jacket. It looks like a more, like an evening coat, maybe, but, dog, what's up? The Ikaruga, the Black God One-Blade School, and our senior practitioners. Excuse me. Reen had been unable to fulfill his objective, and not just that. He was left with countless new questions about the people he encountered and the mountain itself. He felt there was meaning behind being guided to this specific place, but how important it was or what it entailed he did not know. And yet, the person responsible for discerning that won't be me. Looking down at his broken Tachi, he was struck anew with how massive the world truly was. And he realized that, now that his master was confirmed to be elsewhere, the purpose of his visit to Long Lai was nothing more than to enjoy a wonderful, ordinary vacation with his family. This meeting here was but a peculiar coincidence, for now at least. When I get back, I'll need to reforge my Tachi, and myself. Something stirred in this region, all across Calvard, but there was nothing he could do about that as he was. All he could focus on was training and battering himself so he could one day play a part against the next threat that loomed over the distant horizon. New resolve welling in his soul, he made his way through the now still mountain trail back to where his loving family awaited. Another hot springs paradise. The end. Wowee. Bro. Hey, the Dave 2K. Thank you very, very much for the follow, man. Welcome to Brutopia. Holy smokes, dude. Like, there are times where I have a hard time just mentally, like, as I read, like, picturing what's going on, but that was, I was easily, like, just, I was captivated. Like, my entire mind was just playing this out like a goddamn movie. And dude, I want to see this. It was incredibly well written. Are you kidding me? So, what is Yun Ka-Fai up to? Dude, Crownless King? I don't know, dude. Falcom should make some Trails VNs on the side. Yo, low-key, if they did, I would be smitten if I could help read. Because, hey, Dave, thank you very, very much, man. Shameless self-plug. All of our playthroughs, all of our VODs get uploaded to our YouTube channel. And we've done a couple of cozy readings. We've done Carnelia. We've done 3 and 9 twice. In the future, we'll set some more channel goals. Like we'll do like a community challenge, and we'll do more what we call cozy readings here. But if you're interested in having somebody narrate some of the stories for you, I would love to do it, dude. My pleasure. As I say, it would have been nice to know who was talking when there was like 4 people. I was able to, for the most part, discern who was talking and what was going on, except like the very beginning. But I just still think it's like the brain fog. You know what I mean? Waking up from the nap. But it's like it's moving itself out. It's like gone. I notice it a lot with light novel transitions. Sometimes there's just no clear way to tell who's speaking outside of context clues. Yeah. It's something that, like, after I read it, I'll have to double back and kind of look and be like, okay, so I think it was this person talking, but I'm not sure. But fucking A. Glad to know what's good, dude. How are you? That's why these daydreams aren't voiced. They're really meant to be read and immersive, and they really are immersive. This, I know it makes me sound like a contrarian, because I always want to hear, like, or at least there are a lot of times, obviously, in this series, and I get it, it's the budget thing, it's whatever it is, that particular lines aren't voiced. I get it. But in this instance, I'm fine with it not being voiced. I'm fine with, taking the reins, so to speak, to be able to narrate this myself, to read this myself aloud. Because it does. It helps me really get absorbed into the story. It's really, really good. And the slight animations that they did with the shuriken coming and the bits of combat, coupled with just the, these faint, but well done images, the black and gray, the night sky, moon, it's really, really, really good. I dig it. This daydream was meant to be in a visual novel form. So I had said this as we were working through this. I hope if it's not planned already, or if they don't do like a, I'm sorry, my brain is still, trying to kick on, trying to work out of it. for what 3 and 9 was to Reverie, like the story of 3 and 9, I hope that something like this is to what Kuro will be when it releases. Or a drama CD or whatever, dude. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, just to accompany with Kuro, because I feel like it would be really, really good. Ow. Okay, so an unconventional dude. Like the threads of time. Hang on. I gotta collect myself. I'm sweaty and yucky. You could always play Kuro and find out, dog. I'm not, and again, man, I'm not trying to like play this up. This isn't making it any easier. Like, it's really not making it any easier. But I think, I still think I'm gonna stay firm and I'm gonna wait. And fingers crossed we get it in 2024, man. The fan translation is pretty good and can be applied to the NISA PC version of Kuro no Kiseki already on Steam, which will be localized at a later date, probably next year. Yeah, jazzy. And you know what? I made the mistake of, like, purchasing Kuro on PC. So it's there, sitting, waiting. And I've been back and forth for... It's like what it was for me as I was finishing up Cold Steel 4. I was like, okay, I was like... You know, I talked with Feb about using the Zero Field Team's overlay, and he showed me how to use it for Hajimari, and I think ultimately what it was for me was I wanted to wait because I have this attachment to the English voice acting cast, excuse me. I'd become attached to them, and what I had like told myself, I was like, okay, well, I was like, I've heard how great the patch is for Kuro, and I was like, and again, I mean no disrespect to each their own, I would like just turn down the voice acting all the way, and I would voice the characters like I did throughout the Sky Trilogy, or throughout the Crossbell duology, and then upon official release, we'll just kind of take it from there, but I think more, like, this is very difficult for me. I'm so wishy-washy, I'm so back and forth, but I think I'm gonna wait. There's a lot of stuff I want to get to. We're gonna start East 8 tomorrow. I'm still gonna hold off. We're gonna wait for official. I don't think Kuro will be out before late 2024 at the earliest. Might be early 2025. I'm still holding out for 2024. I'm also waiting for Kuro English release. Conan, hell yeah, dude. If you did happen to play Kuro, I'm sure people would agree with me here. Let the voice acting play and read along as well. The voice acting does a fantastic job drawing you in and making it more impactful. And notification, I have no doubt about that. But for me personally, I wouldn't want to do it that way. You only get to experience game for the first time once. Might as well be the best for you. Yeah, Sage, I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna hold off. I'll be interested in hearing. You know, I'm a filthy, dirty, stinking casual. You know, I have very little time to watch TV, so when I do, a little bit of anime here and there. Sorry, don't string me up for that. But I prefer to watch things dubbed. It's more a mental thing for me. I don't like having to read subtitles and try and focus on what's going on picture-wise. It's just, that's for me. I have the utmost respect and appreciation for voice actors across the board. Just for me, like, reading it wouldn't work for me. Easier to focus on the media, it is for me, absolutely. No matter where you are, we are all waiting anyways. It's very true. Kuro's more cinematic. The voices are really impactful, so I think it's better to wait than to play without voices. Yeah, I'm pretty firm. I say I'm pretty firm, but I just got done telling you I'm fucking wishy-washy. I'm so back and forth, but I am. I'm gonna wait. Hopefully, you know, we have. But again, like we've kind of talked about this, I don't think I don't think we're gonna get information on Kuro at PAX West. I know Nisa will be there. I think they're going to continue to put focus on Reverie, as well as Nayuta, which is due out next month. And then maybe moving into the fall or winter months. Like, I don't know when Falcom or Nisa or both would have any type of insight or information for us as consumers as to when we could maybe potentially expect to get the Kuro localization over here. What's my favorite Trails game I've played so far? Azure. Trails to Azure, for sure. And, and it's, like, I base my, like, ranking, it's more like emotional attachment to particular moments, to characters and stuff like that. It's not to say that, like, one game is objectively better than another, in my opinion. It's just, I feel how people consume it, and it hits people differently for a number of reasons. And my top 3 currently, it goes Azure, Reverie, Sky the Third. That's me right now. So that's for me. Okay, so an unconventional student. Let's, cheers. Third hit you hardest emotionally. That's how Azure was for me. And then, yeah, Sky the Third, man. It's good. I understand, you know, people might not enjoy Sky the Third because it's a dungeon crawler, but I just think the copious amounts of character development and lore and information that you get from Sky the Third is bonkers. Not to mention Kevin. Lots of Kevin. It was great. All right, so we're gonna get after it. Let's do it. DC, what's good, my guy? End of Azure dropped it a lot for me. See, I loved the ending of Azure. The ending of Azure fucking, like, tore me apart. Like, in a good way, like, emotionally. The entire... When we find out what really happened with Guy on that night, that gutted me. And then that moment where you see Lloyd talking with Guy, it hit me like an absolute fucking truck. Is it okay to drop the name, or do you want me to whisper it to him? Oh no, you can, like the name of the YouTuber? No, go for broke, Dark Fantasy Realms. Get after it. No, you don't have to hold back on that. No, thank you, dude. Appreciate you. All right, so now we're gonna do it. Let's get after it. April, year 1208 of the Septian calendar. Aramis Academy is a famous educational institution in the Calvardian capital of Edith. The name derives from an artist central to Calvard's democratic revolution 100 years ago. This was also reflected in its goal of nurturing new talent and helping to forge a brighter future for a new republic. The Academy placed great value on traditional education, of course, but it also encouraged the perspectives of new cultures and values, attracting many an independent mind from across Emuria. It was a storied place of learning that reflected the Republic's views as a whole. This story, for its part, begins not long after the Springtime Festival held yearly to welcome the new student body. It was just another morning at the Academy, countless students shuffling through its grounds, when one of them in particular happened to draw an unusual amount of attention. The young lady had long, soft violet hair crowned with a black ribbon. Her figure had been cut very respectably as she matured into a young woman of 17 years, and yet her face still held traces of girlhood days bygone. The beauty she was, she never failed to turn inquisitive heads as she strolled along. No way, dude! Let's go, man! What? All right. Holy shit, man! Let's rock! But what is she doing over there? Are Joshua and Estelle with her? Is she flying solo? Her name was Ren Bright. His name was Robert Paulson. His name was Robert Paulson. Just kidding, that's the first thing that popped into my head. Fight Club, get it? All right. Her name was Ren Bright. She was a second-year student from I can't remember how it's pronounced, Genus Royal Academy in Liberl, now studying at Aramis as part of an exchange program. No shit, man. No, literally the worst ever. Thank you. And anybody else that redeems, like, for me to hydrate, thank you very, very much. Sorry if I just get, like, focused in, as per usual. I'll get to it, I promise. She had only just arrived in the spring. Ren's goal in attending was not to further her education. She had been considered highly gifted since she was a child, having already earned several doctorates in years past, and there was little more a new academy could reasonably teach her. Her goal in reality was to use it as a front to operate freely in Calvard. It was hard to find one better than being a student. She already found the role relatively foolproof during her time at Genus. Even if there were limits to how much a student could get away with, society as a whole was soft on school children. To move freely would also require drawing as little attention as possible. She aimed to conduct herself modestly, as any elegant young lady who wished to remain unseen should during her time at Aramis, or Aramis, however it's pronounced. There was just one very big problem with this plan. Good morning, Miss Bright. Isn't she just gorgeous? Look, I see her. She's so beautiful, and everyone says she's just as smart, too. All she had to do was walk down the hall to be showered with greetings and whispers of envy and admiration. Her looks alone were already enough to make her the talk of the school, but after one of the teachers let slip that she received a perfect score on her entrance exam, there was suddenly not a single person who didn't know her name. The other students cared not how much she wanted to avoid drawing attention. She was getting it whether she liked it or not. Naturally, not everyone was pleased with the booming popularity this new transfer student had attained in less than a month. While most were busy fawning over Ren's arrival that morning, another group watched the charade unfold from the shadows, echoing an audible tuts of displeasure. Ren had yet to be enrolled in any club, so as soon as the day's lessons had come to an end, she packed her belongings and stood to leave. A word, if I may, Miss Bright. It was a fellow classmate surrounded by a small faction of students clearly loyal to their king bee. Dude, his face just kind of reminds me of Patty Cakes. But also kind of like Wayne, but I don't know. Certainly. Though instinct told her this was not going to be a conversation she wanted to have, she made an effort to pretend otherwise. She would not be provoked into behaving as anything but a mature, modest young lady. I've been wanting to get to know you better for some time now, you see, so I was wondering if you might join me for dinner this evening. The boy, Ronald Griffith, presented a gentlemanly smile. Ren was very much used to being asked out like this, and never once did she accept. She always made up some excuse to turn them down. Today would be no different. I'm ever so sorry, but I'm afraid I have something urgent to take care of after school today. Some other time, perhaps. This was usually enough to get them to give up, but Ronald was a persistent one. Well, that won't do. I have something very important to discuss with you, and I've already booked us a table at a very fine restaurant so we can discuss in detail. Is there really no way your business can wait? There was something ominous about his smile. Ren couldn't help but be curious what he was thinking. I'm afraid I can't. I'm so sorry after you've gone out of your way to prepare ahead of time. Still, I could spare a little time now, so I'd be happy to talk here if that's all right. So not tonight then, a pity. Ronald's tone read one less of genuine sadness and more irritation that things were not going according to plan. Well aware that he let slip his true feelings on the matter, he quickly composed himself and smiled. Now is better than ever, I suppose. This does concern everyone in the room, so perhaps it's all for the better, said here. To this, Ren glanced around the room, noticing that only she, Ronald, and his lackeys were all who remained. Most were likely on their way home or in their respective clubs. While some would have ordinarily been in the classroom at this hour, she was certain none wanted anything to do with Ronald and his group. He took a step toward her, then began to speak. I'm well aware, Miss Bright, that you have come all this way from distant Liberl to be here. It's not unusual for students to transfer from afar for family reasons. But I hear in your case you came to Calver just to learn in these hollowed halls. I cannot help but deeply admire your spirit and thirst for knowledge. Pure theatrics, this one. At the same time, I worry about you. Brilliant you may be, but living alone in a far-off land must be a terribly lonely and challenging affair. This dude's got fucking creepo written all over him already. We all need someone to depend on in our lives, and that would be especially so in your situation. So if you don't mind me saying so, Miss Bright, I believe you're in need of someone to look after you, to protect you. I don't think this douche canoe has the slightest idea who he's talking to. It's actually clearly evident he has no fucking clue. At last he shut up, giving Ren a chance to respond. She scrutinized him closely. In short, you'd like for me to join your circle of friends, correct? Ronald's smarmy smile broadened. His father was a senator in the Republic's parliament, meaning he held a significant amount of political power. His son used this to his full advantage. Ever since joining the academy, Ronald had used his father's name to form a faction of sorts among the students, forcibly building his reputation until he was the leading candidate for student council president and the election staged in half a month's time. His goal, Ren assumed, was to bring the hottest talk of the academy into his faction to further secure his chance of victory. I think you'll find that joining us would help you feel much more secure and at home here. Or perhaps you don't yet appreciate just how much of a difference having someone like me backing you would make on the life of an exchange student. True, she mused inwardly. Being in a group of high social standing, would make it easier for her to gather information. If she could leverage his father's connections to build more of her own, that would pay itself in dividends in the days to come. The pompous boy had no way of knowing the actual circumstances that brought her to Aramis, but his proposal was, in fact, very beneficial to her. She returned his smile with a modest one of her own as she answered, You're kind to think so much of me, but I'm afraid I'll have to decline. Clear, unambiguous rejection. Ronald's lips were still curled into a smile, but he could not hide the twitch in his brow, nor could his lackeys hide their shock. They had, by all accounts, expected her to answer the opposite. Are you sure you won't reconsider, Miss Bright? Surely someone as brilliant as yourself can see why accepting my offer would be in your best interest. I fear if you don't now, you may, well, come to regret it. The last words were a hair slower and deliberate to intimidate her. Ren, of course, was never going to fall for it. I'll admit, it is a tempting proposal, tempting enough to inspire one to consider helping a certain someone win the student council election. If only that someone weren't you. What did you just say? The sudden taunt caught him completely off guard, resulting in a flare of irritation escaping him. Ren, for her part, was unruffled by the change. I imagine you don't need me to explain why, but I will to be sure. I've been very aware that the threatening glares I always attract on the way to school every morning have been coming from all of you. They've been a constant in my life ever since just before the festival. All were flabbergasted by the sentiment, their silence confirming what she said to be true. She continued. Now you have every right to regard me with caution. I'm well aware of how much I stand out despite my best efforts. Taking potential threats under my own wing is a strategically sound move too. However, that your target was so easily able to see through your scheme shows everyone here just how inept you really are. I have better things to do than assist someone so incompetent and small-minded. With a shrug and a sigh in a somewhat dramatic fashion, Ren stood before Ronald, his shoulders trembling from rage. Good day to you all. Yo, just absolutely giving him a slice of humble pie. Ren gave a courteous nod of acknowledgement before leaving the room, paying no mind to the wide eyes and open slack jaws she left behind. So Agate ended up getting pretty beat up from another one of Mom's crazy jobs she threw at him. We did get some good data out of it, but ouch. Your mom is always so funny. That night in the dormitory, Ren and Tita were engrossed in deep conversation through their laptops. Yo, she looks so grown up, just in that photo alone. But it's always same old with all of you. I'm surprised there's anything of Agate left with how often you tell me she has him nearly facing death. You two are in a rut. I know something that could spice things up. Maybe try adding a little romance to the mix like a couple of bright-eyed lovebirds we know. But we have agreed to go somewhere next week, so we're not in a complete rut. Hey, M. Bishop, thank you so much for the follow, man. Welcome to Brutopia. It's a pleasure to meet you. Welcome in. All right, man. Well, isn't that something? The stairs to adulthood await you, my dear friend. Ren? Tita graduated from the branch campus in Erebonia just as Ren left for Calvard, leaving them no time to spend with one another in person. That wasn't ideal, of course, but from a hint of sadness came the habit of talking like this once a week so they could stay in each other's lives. They discussed anything from their new lives and environments to the fruits of their research, occasionally stumbling into a serious topical matter or two along the way. It sounds like a legal confrontation between the Verne Company and Epstein Foundation is inevitable at this point. I know, I can't believe this is really happening. Both frowned at their screens. A recent development concerning the Calvardian industrial giant Verne Company had become a key source of concern for them of late. Teotot, Erica, savage. It began soon after Crossbell returned to normalcy after the Supreme Leader's takeover the previous year. Professor Erica Russell approached the Verne Company to propose that they join the West Sumerian Tech Union that she had been hard at work forming. Okay, so this, I don't mean to stop mid-read, but so this gives me a bit of a time frame. It's been a year. It has currently been a year. Prof. Russell kicking it. Golly. But now, is that Who's that on the far? I don't know. And to no one's surprise, they refused. But before Erica and the rest of the engineers involved could even finish getting ready to go and change Vern's mind, something happened to make the Union the least of anyone's priorities. Oh, is that? The independent development of a new generation of orbments and their generation's long partner in this subset of technology, the Epstein Foundation, would not be a collaborator. The latter had been key supporters of Zemuria's orbment development and orbital technology in general since their very inception. Are you okay? Youngblood's fine. No, Mom. What's the problem? Are you good? Came trotting in like there was a fire. Battle orbments were no exceptions to this. The Foundation had known their way around them since the very first model, drafting the incredible concept they had been used as a base ever since. Even the Reinford Company before the Battle of Jormungand had not thought to develop their Arcus models on their own, instead favoring to develop them in partnership with the Storied Institute. The announcement was, quite simply, unprecedented, and it sent shockwaves throughout the industry. The Epstein Foundation was also less than pleased about being cast aside in this manner. While there were certainly legal concerns regarding who owned the patent to this technology, the greater concern was that their stable position in the industry as a whole was now becoming unstable. They initially responded by attempting to resolve this through peaceful means, but when those attempts proved fruitless, it was reported that they were preparing for what could only be an ugly international legal dispute. I'd say Vern has the upper hand if this ever makes it to court. Unlike their previous Ramda orbits, this 6th generation is designed to set a whole new standard. All of its main features are packed with new tech, with some new features still being kept under wraps. Sometimes new tech just gets me emotional. I'm kidding. I wonder what those are. What could they be trying to develop that's important enough to ruin their relationship with the Foundation? Though I have heard about the government telling the Vern Company to focus more on weapons development, I have too. It sounds like they're planning to significantly revamp the military's weaponry. The official story is that they're planning on slimming the military down, but if they're pairing that with the latest in weapons development, then they're still just as powerful, maybe even more so. As part of the war's ceasefire agreement, Erebonia was required to downsize their military, bringing it more in line with that of Calvard's. Yet, if the Republic were to expand the capabilities of its military, this recently forced equilibrium in superpowers would be quickly broken. Whatever may be true, I've got a lot of questions I need answers to. Maybe it would be worth visiting the Vern Company's headquarters in Basel at some point. Basel, it's probably Basel. You haven't learned anything more about where Professor Hamilton is at the moment, right? Nothing new or concrete, at least. It sounds like she's continuing her research eastward, but I haven't heard anything more specific than that. Mom and Grandpa haven't had any luck in contacting her either. I'm not surprised since that area isn't very well connected, but it's still unfortunate. She's a lot more personable than Professor Schmidt, so having her on our side would help a lot. Hey. Tita could only laugh. Yeah, there's a lot worrying There's a lot of worrying stories going around now about PMCs and stuff like that. Sorry, words. It makes me wonder if none of this would even be happening if she was still acting as an advisor for the Vern Company. The deeper into the conversation they went, the more Tita could feel her spirits sinking. The political climate in Western Zemuria was unusually stable at the moment, with its nations basking in prosperity. But she could not shake off the feeling that this peace was built over rotting wood and that it could all come crashing down with but the slightest provocation. This was becoming especially true in the tech world, as it had undergone rapid growth in recent years compared to other fields. So rapid, in fact, that no base could possibly sustain its sudden weight without cracks beginning to form. Try not to dwell too much on the worst case scenario, Tita. This peace might rest on a knife's edge, but there's still plenty we can do to preserve it. That's why I'm here right now, and that's also why you're working so hard too. We could find a million problems in the world if we wanted, but pessimism isn't going to make them go away, right? The world's filled Tita with the right amount of comfort she needed in that precise moment, excuse me. Yeah, I guess you're right. Thanks, Ren. They continued on, losing track of time as they talked well into the night. Before they knew it, the clock had struck 12. Well, it's getting really late, so I should probably be going. I'll talk to you soon, okay? All right, good night, Tita. Night. Oh! Tita suddenly remembered something. The exclamation stopped Ren just as she was about to end the call. Estelle and Joshua told me to ask you if you're doing okay in school. Those two always worry too much. You'd think I wasn't talking to them too. She couldn't help but remember her interaction with Ronald after class, but Ren quickly drove the thought from her mind. It wasn't worth dredging up. Tell them they can rest easy. Everything is fine. Good. They wanted me to let them know if you were being bullied so they could fly over and help. Ren could only sigh. Honestly, do they think I can't keep myself safe from a few schoolyard bullies? Actually, they said they were more worried about what you do to them than what they do to you. At her friend's silence, Tita couldn't help but burst out laughing. I worry about you too, obviously, but they're probably right. How awful of you. Even if that were to happen to me, I wouldn't do half of what you're imagining. Not anymore, anyway. See, it's saying that kind of thing that makes people worry. See, it's saying that kind of thing that makes people worry. I'm a lady now. I need the magnanimity? Goddamn words. Hang on. Magnanimity to forgive the transgressions of others. Sorry, it's causality all over again. I'm also trying to do what I can to avoid standing out too much at school. You can try, but I think that's always been a lost cause. Anyway, now I'm really going to go before I remember anything else. Say hi to Zin for me if you run into him? I'm planning to go and see him when everything calms down here, so will do. I've been meaning to go and see someone else I've been indebted to in the past, too. By the time the two of them had finished talking and ended the call, one day had given way to the next. Yo, Zin gets a name drop? Let's rock, bro. The morning dawned, yet another day of school. However, just as she left her classroom in the main building at the start of lunch and went to descend the staircase, she felt someone suddenly draw near from behind her. Reflexively, she dodged out of the way. A female student then entered the field of vision. She had lost her balance, her expression a mix of fear and surprise. She passed through the spot Ren had been moments before, but her momentum showed no sign of fading. If someone didn't stop her, she was going to start tumbling down the stairs. Ren was quick to grab her and pull her close. She supported the girl's weight with one arm with all the grace of someone taking part in a ballroom dance, saving her from falling. Mac, what's good, bro? Jay, thank you for the 9 months, bro. Appreciate it very much, man. Several students happened to witness the event unfold and could not help but elicit gasps of admiration. Noticing the girl's eyes were still unfocused, Ren gently addressed her. Are you all right? You aren't hurt, are you? Finally realizing the situation she was in, the girl, whose face had become quite red, quickly straightened her posture in a fluster. Yes, I'm okay. You're Ren Bright from the next class over, aren't you? Thank you so much for helping me. You're very welcome. But I would have to caution you from losing your composure like that right next to a staircase. Do you have some really urgent business to take care of? The girl first frowned in response, then paused to think, then answered. Nothing I can think of. It's weird, but even though it was probably my imagination, it felt like someone had pushed me from behind. Obviously, no one here would do that, so I must have just bumped into someone by accident. She thanked her rescuer again before disappearing into the distance. The situation had deemed her imagination, however, lingered in Ren's mind. If I hadn't sensed something was amiss, both of us would have fallen down the stairs. We would have been badly hurt. Was it really just a coincidence, or was it a deliberate action by someone who wants to hurt me? If it was the latter, she didn't have anything to support this theory, but with it came a familiar sensation. The feeling of malicious stares focusing on her from the shadows. It took surprisingly little time for her suspicions to gain evidence. After finishing gym class the next day, Ren made for the classroom and began preparing for her next lesson. As she did, she immediately noticed something was amiss. All of her textbooks had been glued shut with an excessive amount of adhesive. Try as she did to open them, it was a lost cause to get to even a single page. It was an obvious attempt to harass her. The culprits behind the act were equally obvious. Not far from where Ren was sitting, Ronald Griffith and his lackeys, whom she so memorably turned away 2 days prior, were snickering to themselves. Their eyes mockingly focused on Ren all the while. They're not even interested in hiding what they're like anymore. I'm sure at this point, they want me to know who did it to them, to intimidate me. This latest development also confirmed in her mind that they were responsible for trying to push her down the stairs the day before. What a pitiful sight they were. Because she refused to join their group, her existence was, in their eyes, now nothing more than a hindrance to Ronald's campaign for student council president. They would stop at nothing to either break her spirit and force her to join, or shame her into lowering her popularity among the student body. It didn't matter that Ren had no interest in taking part in the election. Excuse me. After further inspecting the state of her textbooks, Ren's expression grew difficult to read. I think I can make them usable again, but not in what little time I have left before class. The bell soon chimed to signal the start of her lesson. Ren left her textbooks out on top of her desk, making no effort to open them throughout. Her instructor was, of course, less than pleased about this perceived slight against them, picking her to answer a question as an attempt to chide her poor behavior. Miss Bright, please read the next paragraph aloud for us. Ronald and his friends let out a series of pleased giggles at this, their minds delighting at the thought of a flustered Ren being told off and humiliated in front of the entire class. But what transpired in reality played out very differently from their fantasies. Without missing a beat, Ren did exactly as she was told, reciting the selected paragraph she had been asked to read word for word. And all while her textbook remained closed. Did you memorize the entire book? Even the instructor could not hide their surprise. But of course, as a student of Aramis Academy, I would never dare to compromise. In preparing for my lessons, Ren responded with such grace that she, of course, drew in more sighs and coos of admiration from both her instructor and peers alike. It was only Ronald and his posse who groaned with sullen expressions. The next incident came on Ren's way to school the next morning. She entered the school gates with a horde of other students and was just about to step into the building when she noticed a foul smell coming from above her. She looked upward, noticing a portion of the fence surrounding the building's rooftops was falling directly above her. Other students noticed at the time, letting out screams of horror and worries they could do nothing about it. I could get out of the way easily if I wanted to, but the fencing was over 2 arcs in length. She could escape unharmed, but the other students around her would likely not. That was a risk she was unwilling to take. Grasping the battle ornament hidden in her bag, she cried out, "Airstrike!" A sphere of wind formed in response to her incantation, flying upward at high speeds. She carefully controlled its power so that instead of sending the fence flying, it simply canceled out its momentum instead, allowing her to hop and catch it with ease. She's so fucking good, dude. This was no accident. The smell makes it obvious. It was the distinct smell of a liquid extracted from a certain plant monster. One of its properties was to imitate the natural corrosion of metal, resulting in its application in certain solvents. This made the fence falling a deliberate action the perpetrator had been trying to disguise as an accident, and when Ren, having been the target of several malicious acts already, the culprit was clear. Again, she could feel the presence of those familiar hateful stares pouring into her from the shadows. But again as well, they were not the only ones with eyes on her. Whoa, that was awesome. Did you see that? Is there anything she can't do? Ren's quiet meditation was disrupted by a multitude of cheers and applause from all around her. As if she were a performer just about to leave the stage, she gave an elegant bow in response. This would not be the last time she endured harassment from Ronald's group, but each and every time they thought they bested her, she would handle herself with exemplary skill, their efforts only serving to make her more popular. The state of affairs continued for several more days before, seemingly out of patience, Ronald summoned Ren behind the school building after lessons were over for the day. He stood oppressively before her, his lackeys behind him, with the composure he attempted to feign before now replaced by a plain, vile anger. She's like, "Congratulations, you played yourself." Let me give it to you straight, Ren Bright. You are an eyesore. Even that gentlemanly air he impersonated before was gone. Really? Well, that's not a very polite thing to say to a classmate. Don't try to act cute and innocent. I've put too much damn time and mirror into building my position up at this academy, but who's always the center of attention instead? It's you. It's always you. It's like you're deliberately trying to sabotage my chances of success, and that's the last thing I can afford right now. The more livid Ronald became, the more unruffled Ren was in turn. You're only sabotaging yourself by setting me up to succeed over and over again. You are aware of that, aren't you? Had she not been forced to defend herself against him over and over again, she would not have received nearly as much attention. This being pointed out caused Ronald to return an audible tut of frustration. Who cares about how it happens? The point is, this has gone on long enough. So I'm going to have to ask you to step off the stage for a while. What do you mean? Ronald seemed to present some of his initial cool from when they first talked as he answered. Oh, I mean something very simple. You just won't come to school until the election is over. And if I refuse? To this, he raised a hand, and in response, his lackeys stepped forward to surround her. The boys were unusually well built for their age, showing off their hulking forms in the hope of intimidating her. Refusing is not an option, I'm afraid. If you aren't going to oblige me willingly, we will just have to make it so you can't come to school for a while. His lackeys cracked their knuckles dramatically to clarify their leader's intent. Well, that's no good. I think we both know that would constitute a grave violation of the school rules. Something about her inflection caused him to mistake her commentary as showing a hint of fear, further fueling their desire to dominate the situation. No one's watching a place like this, and even if someone did happen to see, my father is a politician. He can make it go away. If they don't willingly choose to ignore what they saw in deference to my position, that is, Everyone at this academy seems to already know their place, you see. Everyone except you. His smile then was so unpleasant that a sigh escaped Ren. Oh, I think you're the one who doesn't know your place. I don't want to be rough with him after what Tita said, but he needs to be taught a good hard lesson. Ronald continued on, oblivious to what was running through his apparent victim's mind. Now do as I say. His lackeys drew closer, readying to seize her. I'll keep it mild, but I still want this to hurt for them. Just enough to set them on the right track. I don't think Estelle or Joshua would object to that. But just as she was about to act, stop this at once. A girl's shout could be heard from the direction of the school building. She was, of course, not shouting at Ren. And who are you? Ronald was visibly irritated. Though the girl appeared to be visibly nervous, she continued to stand her ground. Oh, is this the girl that almost fell down the stairs as well? I didn't mean to listen in, but I couldn't help but overhear what was happening here. You can't go through with this. What you're doing is wrong. The girl stepped forward till she was directly in front of Ren to protect her from her schoolyard bullies. As she did so, the light revealed sleek, dazzling blonde hair that shimmered much like the sunshine above. Ren recognized her to be a first-year student who lived in the dormitory next to her. They weren't close to one another. At most, they only exchanged polite greetings with one another as they passed each other in the halls. She always seemed like a quiet, polite young woman with a good upbringing. However, not the type whose eyes would glow with resolve as she put her well-being on the line for someone else's. Ren was surprised by this, as was Ronald, though he was less than impressed. He never fathomed that another student would dare to resist him. One thing he did sense was that her resistance was little more than a brave front. With excitement at the thought of stripping that front bare, he grew a sadistic smile and addressed her. Is it now? Well, how fortunate of me I have you to show me the error of my ways. Ren can wait. You're a first year, I assume? I'm going to need to give you a lesson in just how right and wrong works in our society. Upon his signal, his lackey shifted to surround their new target over Ren. She began to tremble as danger closed in on her, but still she did not move. Don't you dare. This time it was Ren who spoke up. I'll give you what you want, so don't you dare touch her. But, you sure about that? She wasn't planning on that response, but Ronald was more than happy to have his win in any form. I'll stay away from school for a while, that's what you want, right? But then you... The experience of studying abroad had been rather tiring for me, so maybe I'd need some rest. Ren's voice was gentle in an attempt to assuage the kind girl's concerns. Ronald, meanwhile, made no attempt to hide the joy he felt at victory, laughing heartily with the glee of a spoiled child. Good, now everyone knows their place here. I see no reason to harm either of you now that I've got what I want. Consider yourselves lucky now that I've decided to let you go. Ronald turned away and made to leave, his lackeys following suit. Good day to you then. When we next meet, this school will be all mine. And then he was gone. Excuse me for just 1 second. I gotta use the bathroom real quick. I gotta replenish the chug jug, need some more water. I will be back in like 2 minutes. BRB. It's a seltzer. Calm down. Oof, cold and bubbly. Feels good. Okay, that one is dangerous though. Yep, okay. Little lemon lime seltzer action. Feels good. Okay. And away we go. Navasa, what's good, dog? Mac, how are you, man? What's happening? Everybody, I don't mean to be rude if you have said hello. My apologies. Just kind of hard focusing, reading through this experience. We'll call them light novels, huh? I guess that's what we'll just call it for the time being. But I promise we'll catch up. I'm excited to be here, excited to have you guys here, so it's great to see you. Good to hear, man. Reverie has been fucking chef's kiss, bro. With only the girls left behind in the school building, the younger of the two looked up at her senior, concern welling in her expression. I really am all right. You're very kind to worry. Ren's smile was one of genuine kindness. Make sure not to see chat for... No, it's all good. And hey, I understand, like, I'm excited. I appreciate everybody else's excitement. I am, in no way, shape, or form trying to sound rude when I say this, but I'm trying to ignore chat for the most part, just because if something does... You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just trying to focus up on this so we can read, and then we'll talk some more. But I always say this, I'll continue to say it till my last dying breath, right? I understand the excitement. I understand that platforms like this and YouTube and Twitch and all that stuff, you know, people roll in different circles. People consider different things to be spoilers, foreshadowed, etc., etc. If something does happen to get deleted, please don't take it personally. There is no venom behind it. There is no ill will, hatred, or anything like that. I don't want to discourage anybody from chatting. I try to go about every single playthrough as in the dark, as blind as humanly possible. And I know that a lot of the time, what I consider to be a spoiler or foreshadowing, etc., to be a bit over the top, but that is just me. So if something, again, gets deleted from chat, don't take any offense to it. Nobody is upset. I am not upset. Mods are not upset. I repeat this as often as I do, just so it makes things easier for mods to not have to be like so hawk-eyed on things, you know what I mean? So I love you guys. Thank you very, very much. From then on, Ren did indeed stop coming to school, citing illness as the official reason behind her absence. The students then gathered in the Academy's auditorium several days later for the long-awaited Student Council election. Aramis Academy as a whole placed great importance on the autonomy of its students, and as such the Student Council exercised an unusual amount of power. It also weighed upon them a massive amount of responsibility, such as being the sole planner for the Academy's festival, a symbol and celebration of spring in the capital. This, however, also led to the position being a major status symbol even long after graduation. All of this was why a large number of students put their names forward to become the Student Council president every year. Yet this year, a great majority of the most promising candidates dropped out under mysterious circumstances, leaving only Ronald and others associated with him on the ballot. I couldn't exactly boast about winning by default. Ronald and his supporters sat in the rest area, chuckling among themselves at the whole affair. Perhaps his name wasn't the only one on the ballot, but none of the others had done any certifiable campaigning, meaning his election was positively assured. Eventually, the time came for him to give his speech. It was a compelling one. He played the part of a respectable young gentleman as he delivered it, speaking with that same silver tongue he inherited well from his father. There were some moments where he failed to hide his arrogance, but as no one else had prepared a speech to give, this was not the blow to his campaign it otherwise would have been. Now, if you could turn your eyes to the screen he spoke of was at the back of the auditorium. This was a rather notable feature to have in a school building, to have anywhere, and was installed several years prior for use in lectures and to display recreational films. Other nations had yet to indulge in such luxuries, showing just how far ahead Calvert was in its technology. Up until then, students had used it to display photographs during their speeches, but Ronald intended to take it another step further. He wanted to share a promotional video and not a simple makeshift self-produced one that might ordinarily be presented by an amateur, but rather a professional work he paid a considerable amount of mira for. Its quality was genuinely impressive. His victory was written in stone, but this, he knew, would cement it that much more. Convinced this would serve as the perfect beginning to his ascension to the top of the social hierarchy, he started the video, The musical number it played was rousing, fitting. What followed then was Ronald appearing on screen. "So how much mira do you want for supporting me? I can make it worth your while." What? The video playing before them was not the one intended. Rather than an inspirational show of what he could bring to the student body, it was a recording of him buying off one of his opponents just days before. As hushed whispers of confusion spread through the auditorium, the next clip played. "If you know what's good for you, you'll withdraw your candidacy right now, or the only thing you'll be president of is a hospital bed." Next was an equally unexpected scene of Ronald intimidating another candidate into withdrawing from the race. As it continued, Ronald realized what was going on. Someone out there had replaced his carefully prepared video with another. The initially hesitant whispers exploded into loud enough murmurs that he had to raise his voice over them in an attempt to quell the situation. This is all a forgery. Someone is attempting to frame me. But just at that moment, as if waiting for his cries of denial, a girl's voice resounded from the auditorium's entrance. "I'm afraid it is all entirely genuine." Her voice rang out with wonderful clarity, charming all who heard it. She ran her hand through her violet hair and flipped it back as she talked and walked slowly toward the stage. Amazing. Bribing potential threats, blackmailing, threatening, even executing violence against others, and many other cases of bullying besides. Hey, fan, thank you so very, very much for the raid. Welcome in, everybody. Sorry, we are, I'm deep in the read. Chocobo Knights, it's a pleasure to see you all. How are you? Gandalf, thank you very much. Fan, I hope you had yourself a great night. How was Harvestella? Have you wrapped up Final Fantasy 16? Ren's a friggin' savage, dude. I love it. Always have. Only 72% done, little bit of a break. Gotcha. Understando. Yeah, don't mess with the kitty. Hell no. Hope you had a great stream. I hope you and your two counterparts are doing excellent always. Ren bright as savage as the burning sun. I like that. That fits really well. You are guilty on every single count, Ronald Griffith. Before anyone could fully understand what was happening, this student was on the stage and staring Ronald down. All eyes were fixed upon this elegant figure. Indeed, without any effort at all, she had the air of a protagonist from some epic tale making her long-awaited appearance. Damn it, Ren Bright. Must you insist on getting in my way at every turn? He growled through a sheet of sheer anger. In contrast, the recently absent Ren responded with brilliant composure. You are the one getting in the way of the fair running of this important election. Your countless crimes have made a mockery of the whole process. Ren then turned from Ronald to the rest of the student body as she continued to list his crimes alongside the still running video. Some elicited frowns, others sympathy. Others complete silence. But by the time she was finished, all were united in a single overpowering emotion. Anger. It brings me no joy to say this about a fellow student, but I'm afraid it must be said. Ronald Griffith, you do not deserve to even attend this prestigious academy, much less be the president of its student council. Similar censure from other students followed in rapid succession. Yeah, she's right. Hey fan, lots of love. Thank you so very much again for bringing the Chocobo Knights here. Thank you very much for the raid. Have a very, very happy Tuesday. Stay safe. Much love, fam. Stop ruining our academy. You've gone too far. Ren's accusation wasn't the only reason for their anger. The students of Aramis had long loathed Ronald's oppressive behavior. They only hadn't spoken out before because they were afraid of his father's power. Now that they realized he could be stopped, their anger had reached an explosive boiling point. Ronald suddenly found himself at the center of a torrent of abuse. He looked to his lackeys for support, but even they refused to meet his gaze. Ronald is like fucking Biff Tannen and the other dudes in 1955 and Back to the Future. The one guy that wore the paper 3D sunglasses. Those are his lackeys. I think Billy Zane was one of them too, if I remember correctly. It then dawned on him just how fragile all he thought he built was. Rage gave way to an instant deep despair, and, casting a glare of pure hatred toward Ren, Ronald hurriedly sprinted out of the auditorium. Only when he was completely out of sight did the air erupt with cheers of joy. In the end, addressing the aftermath of the election took long enough that, by the time she left for the gates, it was already evening. Yet, even with how late it was, instead of walking her usual route home, she stepped off the path to enter an entirely unoccupied park. How does this work? No one is going to interrupt us here, so how about you come on out? In response to her words, Ronald emerged before her for the first time since he ran away earlier in the day, and with 10 or so companions in tow. These men weren't his usual lackeys, but instead vicious figures with dark expressions and gaudy clothing. They were clearly not students of the academy. More than likely, they belonged to some local gang. Is this going to be the Ravens redemption arc somehow over in Calvert? Just kidding. They're going to be bracers. We all know it. You don't keep very good, company outside of school now, do you? With how they're dressed up, I assume you must be off to a party or something. I'm going to wipe that smug smirk right off that face for good, Ren Bright. My dazzling future in politics was guaranteed, but now you've gone and ruined everything. What am I supposed to say to my father now? That's your problem, not mine. Or are you so small a man that you can't own up to the consequences of your own mistakes? Not a second passed between his outburst and the manner in which she snapped back, causing his temper to grow twice as vile. That's it. I don't care what it takes. You are going to pay for thinking you could cross me and get away with it. Have at her. There won't be any consequences for going too far. My father will see to that. The men sprung into motion upon Ronald's signal. But what followed made them doubt their eyes. Yeah, dude! Ronald could not understand what just unfolded before him. His eyes relayed the information well enough, but his mind rejected it completely. The second after he ordered his new lackeys to attack, Ren had produced a monstrously sized black and gold scythe from thin air. This in itself was beyond comprehension, but it wasn't the last thing to be so. The scene was like a cat toying with a powerless cornered mouse. Except in this shocking case, Ren was the cat and his men were the mice. They surrounded her at first, and yet all it took was a single swing of her conjured weapon to cause most of them to collapse to the ground. Amazing. In less than 10 seconds, their confidence had crumbled with their bodies. The mice made to scurry as fast as they could, but the cat gleefully gave chase. There were even moments where she let a few think they had gotten away, only for her to immediately close the gap between them. It was only after she was bored that she would knock them unconscious like the rest. Then she would seek delight in her next hunt. Like heavy sacks of potatoes, the men fell one by one, one by one, one by one, until only Ren and Ronald were left. Itchy beak. This can't be happening. The young man was still struggling to come to terms with what he just witnessed as Ren stretched her limbs like a bored child still gearing up to play. Amateurs, every last one of them. I thought I could at least have a little fun. Oh, but don't you worry, I didn't actually slaughter them. She turned her gaze from the spectacle of her own creation to Ronald. So fucking good, man. Oh my god, it's so good. Would you be open to giving me a little more entertainment, perhaps, Ronald? Ronald twitched in fear at the mention of his name. In this moment, she was now nothing more than a beast in human skin. Stay away from me. My father's in Parliament, you know. Try anything on me and you'll regret it. Her response was an expression of pure pity before tossing what appeared to be a magazine at his feet. It's one of today's tabloids. You might find its contents relevant. What? At first, he was baffled by this shift, but the second he peeked at the cover, his face went pale. Representative Griffith suspected of bribery and connections to organized crime, read the headline in giant punchy lettering. There's a whole special feature on Your Dearest Daddy complete with evidence. It mentions that the CID is going to be conducting an investigation as well, so this may be the last day you can say he's in Parliament. My condolences. So, Machias to Calvert confirmed? No! So visceral was his shock at the news that the simple word was all he could muster. Even then, Ren wasn't finished. Damn, man! So good, dude. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Fel, what's up, bub? How are you, dude? It's good to see you. I hope all is well. So now that he's been removed from the equation, I'll ask again. Would you be open to giving me a little more entertainment? She edged closer and closer, scythe in hand, and a sadistic smile lacing her lips. Ronald tried to retreat in fear before tripping over a rock and falling hopelessly on his backside. All he could do was watch her as though she were the Grim Reaper, tears and snot streaming down his face. Be a doll and play with me. Then you'll understand why they used to call me the Angel of Slaughter. She raised her scythe above her head and ready to swing it downward before realizing what she said. Oops. A grown woman wouldn't play with dolls though, would she? And here I thought I could better control my childish glee. She covered her mouth with her free hand, blushing with feminine modesty at her slip-up. None of this was behavior fitting the proper lady she wanted to reflect. After composing herself, she turned her attention back to her prey, only to see he was already unconscious. Finished? As she left the park, a calm young man called out to her. I certainly am. Ren met eyes with a brown-skinned young man leaning covertly against one of the trees. It was safe to assume he had witnessed the entire affair unfold. He glanced inside the park for a brief moment before speaking with slight but genuine admiration. You really are something. In what way? In every way. Even if I was more struck by the hacking abilities of the famous Kitty than the combat prowess of the infamous Angel of Slaughter. Still hard to believe you managed to find dirt on his bigwig dad that easily. Ren's prowess was a matter of fact, showing no sign his praise had gone to her head. Most people just aren't as cautious about cybersecurity as they ought to be. Understandable with how new most are to it. Of course, it isn't nearly as easy as this was when dealing with the leading corporations and politicians at the top of the food chain. You made it sound like you've tried before. Maybe I have. Ren's smile was both cryptic and darling. I've been more impressed with you. You were quick to write a piece that scathing while also finding me exactly the proof I needed. I'm glad Grace introduced us. Just doing my job. The man's name was Dingo, and he was a professional reporter for a tabloid. Dingo works for the National Enquirer. Let's go. He was extremely capable at his job, very well connected, and held a reputation for never shying away from danger. After being introduced to one another by Grace Lynn, he and Ren made a deal with one another just a few days prior. The terms were simple. Dingo would provide Ren with proof of Ronald's misdemeanors, and Ren would use her hacking abilities to provide evidence of his father's crimes. Both were now reaping the rewards of the other's success. Though I'll admit that I did get some help from a friend, he was none too pleased about being asked to look into a scummy politician's equally scummy son, but he pulled through. Oh, you just have all kinds of connections, don't you? She did sense someone other than Dingo was acting on her behalf while she was off school, but she wasn't sure who that someone was. This curious sensation regarding their identity remained as she continued the conversation. You know, I'm surprised you didn't meet with any resistance in running that story. That just goes to show how big a fan the government was of Griffith. They left him alone because he didn't actively oppose the current president's party, but from the CID's perspective, this chance to take him down was about as good as it was going to get. That does sound like something Miss Taito Master over there would do. I can't say I like the feeling of being used by her, but oh well. Dingo then made a curious observation. I have to wonder why you went to such lengths to get rid of a small fry like him. He really bother you that much? Ren glanced briefly at Ronald, still collapsed on the ground of the park, before shrugging her shoulders dismissively. Not in the least. I didn't intend for this to go as far as it did either. I only wanted to teach him enough of a lesson so he'd leave me alone, but it was then that the younger student who tried to save her came to mind. I think the students deserve a much better student council president than him. She then let out a titter that was most refined. As Ren expected, the allegations led Ronald's father to resign from Parliament while he resigned from Aramis Academy. The group of students who exerted power over the student body with his backing vanished overnight as a result, bidding peace to return to the grounds for the first time in too long. One thing, however, came about from this that Ren had not expected in the least. Here are all the documents relating to next month's budget. The student council's new president accepted the documents from the blonde-haired first year in charge of general affairs, perusing them straight away. After Ronald dashed from the auditorium on the day of the election, most of those in his group who put down their name dropped out in a timely fashion. Voting still took place even then, but once all was said and done, nearly 70% of the votes were disqualified. This was because they were all in favor of someone who never had put her name on the ballot. Ren Bright. Aramis Academy was known for how little its staff interfered with the many liberties it gave its students, but this time, the staff was clearly concerned that dissatisfaction with Ronald was going to present dire problems in the future. The teachers then chose to directly negotiate with Ren, and in the face of such fervent demand, she reluctantly accepted the position of student council president. None of her duties posed to challenge her, but by accepting it, she had completely and utterly failed her initial goal of avoiding attention. I wonder if this is how the Thor's Branch campus first student council president felt when he was elected. Even I couldn't believe it when Tita told me. All right, it is what it is, I suppose. I'll just have to make use of this as best I can. Amazing, dude. So good. Sunlight beamed into the student council room. The blonde-haired girl and two of her friends struggled with the new workload they were adjusting to. As Ren sat there, ears open to random talk and the occasional grumble, a thought crossed her mind. She had no end of real-world worries, the problems arising from rapid technological development, the society's next move, the ominous winds of change blustering over Calvard. But despite all those, she wanted to enjoy her simple time here while she could. Excuse me. What say we get this work done so we can celebrate with a tea party? The arrival of spring was now a distant memory, even if summer had yet to come. There was nothing particularly spectacular about this time. It was just another ordinary, beautiful, bright afternoon. A bright afternoon. I see what they did there. An unconventional student. Yo. Epically good, dude. So goddamn good. I really hope they include these as either drama CDs or like whatever you want to call them. Light novels, like a 3 and 9, like they did with Reverie. Like, please. Golly. Damn. Oh. Well, that just popped up out of nowhere, huh? Well, fucking A. Dude, keep on trucking? Boy, will I. All right. Forward, sword in hand. Thought you were done? No, I mean, I guess I kind of did, because obviously there was no forward sword in hand. Like, that wasn't here earlier. All right. Jay, thanks, man. Loving this for you, bud. Stay hydrated too. Have to. I'm riding the seltzer train, and then we'll go right back to the old chug jug. Okay, so now we're going back a year. September year 1207 of the Septian calendar. I cannot accept. I was not one to mince words. The hulking bear of a veteran bracer, Zin Vathek, could not hide his disappointment, puffing out his bottom lip with a sigh as he stood before me. Let's go, man! Not again. You gotta resign yourself to the inevitable one of these days. I had been indebted to this man who was as capable as he was kind since my first days in the guild. Truly, I didn't wish to be a source of vexation for him, but the wish alone was not enough. I have neither the experience nor skill to be worthy of A rank, so I cannot accept your recommendation. Bracers are assigned ranks based on their strength and achievements, with A rank being the highest on paper at least. Its members are the very face of its beloved organization, and as such, ranks are a metaphorical badge of honor to be worn with pride. So, how had I received multiple recommendations for the most prestigious rank in 6 months? I spared no effort in working to hone my craft in the years I'd joined after school, and certainly I wouldn't classify myself as a doe-eyed newcomer, but to have my name among the greats of the guild? Absolutely not. But after turning down my first recommendation, a second one had come from the guild's headquarters in Le Mans. If you ask me, you got both in spades. There's something else making you lead toward a no? Zin's awkward smile told me he had been pressured by headquarters to persuade me. I folded my arms. Who is this? Setting aside whether you're overestimating me or not, which I believe you are, there is. I would very much like to not stand out any more than I already do. I've been getting offers to be a model, to star in films. It's been, frankly, exhausting forcing them to give up. Now, what do you think would happen if I were to accept a promotion? I'll be neck deep in the same mess all over again. Okay, that makes sense. But sorry, you're a 1-2 punch in the beauty and bronze department trying to lay low's a lost cause. With the kind of fans you're getting, maybe you should consider the silver screen after all. Who knows? You might walk away with an award from the film festival. Zin's laugh was hearty in contrast to my unamused frown. Much as I respected him, he could do with showing a little more decorum. That's not funny. I understand being the public eye to some extent is inevitable, and I've accepted it, but I'm a bracer, not an entertainer. I wasn't trying to be funny, though. You gotta find a way to let off some steam, or you're gonna break when you need to when we need you put together the most. Happens to the workaholics like you more often than you think. I didn't think I was pushing myself as much as he implied, but I also couldn't deny that there was a nugget of truth to what he said. We were off topic, though. Just why is headquarters so desperate for me to become an A-rank bracer? I can't see the logic behind it. Well, you see, starting with what you know, the reparations from Erebonia have beefed up our economy this year, so all kinds of new investments are pouring in from across the continent. Now, I'm no economist, but people go where the money's at. And where people go, conflict follows, and that's just how it is. I saw where he was going from there, electing to expand upon the rest myself. So now we have disputes between megacorporations and a stark increase in Jaeger activity. These are in addition to the known growth of private military companies, the increased tensions between mafias. You got it. You think it's bad now, it's only gonna get worse from here. That's why Le Mans wants to up security while promoting our rising star, you. To see it as good PR for the guild and a deterrent to any potential threats that are thinking about stepping out of line. Perhaps I was more vaguely aware of the goal in using me than I wanted to admit. This didn't make hearing the answer any more satisfying. Excuse me. If they have you asking me to play my part, then surely they have asked you to play your part already. You've been recommended for S rank, haven't you? Fucking right he has. If you know of a better deterrent than having an S rank in Calvard, then I'd like to hear it. Zin scritched the back of his head awkwardly upon my statement. I just don't think I'm up there with someone like Cassius Bright. In my opinion, he, without question, is. S isn't even an official rank. And even if it was, just look at me. You think a guy like me's a picture-perfect advertisement for the guild? I mean, strength and achievement. He helped, like, save the world. Liberarch. You know, like, man, it's fucking awesome, dude. I think you have the skills, achievements, and build to be one. Yes. Yes. A curt, quick response. All right, point made. I can't force you to take the recommendation, and I'm not about to be a hypocrite. Just, let me know if you change your mind, okay? With that, the conversation came to an end, and the guild's bracers gathered to begin our routine meeting of delegating open requests. This is how I preferred things. It was better to stay like this. But who is she? Like, who is this? There was a point when I wanted to be something more. can no longer remember when that was. Something during my childhood had happened, I'm sure. I just recall realizing how small the world truly was. So I prayed and longed to become someone I was not. It was around high school when I thought I became that someone. Those years were unforgettable. I'll never forget the unexpected reunion that was had there, nor the priceless treasure I had gained. I truly thought I'd gotten closer to who I wanted to be. But in the end, it was just wishful thinking. My hand, once held, was now empty. And I was still a nobody. But I refused to stand still. I grew unrelenting in following the new path I chose for myself, ignoring my family's objections. My motivations had changed, however. I no longer possessed that girlhood desire of becoming something more, of becoming someone. I just needed to keep moving, however aimless that movement was. Well, aren't we looking gorgeous today? With a whimsical wink, a familiar bartender welcomed me to his establishment. He was a tall, affable man who lived by his own rules and never hesitated to lend a helping hand to others. He reminded me much of the Crossbell City branch's receptionist from the few times I visited for work. I mean, like the last time we heard like this jam, what was it, Azure? The place was nearly empty today. I sat down on the counter seat furthest from the door as he approached. The usual, sweetheart? I stopped by here after a hard day's work on occasion, and whenever I did, I always ordered coffee and a light snack. This was not a coffee and a snacks kind of day. I like whoever she is. Coffee, let's rock. Excuse me. I want something with alcohol. Even beer will do. Could this be love? Not at all fazed by the vagueness of my order, he walked away and started preparing my drink. It wasn't long before he returned and placed an elegant glass in front of me. I think this is a little more you than a beer. It was a beautiful cocktail composed of two colors, a clear blue, like that of a priceless sapphirol, and a calming jade. No doubt he could tell how disquieted my heart was and was trying to soothe it in its own way. Gotta get back in the pocket. I thanked him inwardly before daring to broach my other reason for coming. Have you learned anything about what I asked? Apart from being a skilled bartender, he was also a well-known informant. He was extremely well connected to the guild, the press, and even the criminal underworld, but he was very careful never to overstep his bounds with that last one. Indeed, I found him to be a valuable source when needed. I wish I could say yes, but not even Dingo has any promising leads. Still, I think you've got your eyes on the right district. It's only a matter of time before they get smoked out. I see. Since the guild's investigation turned up nothing, I was hoping he would better point me in the right direction, but it seemed this was going to be a lot harder than I hoped. Things will work out, just pace yourself and keep at it a little bit at a time. That also applies to that cocktail. It's a strong one, so don't drink it all at once. I tilted the glass delicately, between my fingers as he stepped away. My mind continued to wade through the case I was following. There had been a stark increase in illegal drugs on the market, not just any drugs either, but ones of highly addictive, dangerous variety. Hayue, who effectively ruled over the criminal underworld in Calvert, ordinarily limited their proliferation in the market as part of their rules. Limiting the number of drugs was, of course, far from the ideal elimination of them, But none could deny that the syndicate's actions had brought some semblance of order to where chaos often reigned supreme. Yet the past few years had seen a worrying number of criminal groups rebelling against these careful, curated rules. One of these groups was surely behind the change in the market, and all of this held a presumed connection to two missing people. The Gildan police had been tasked with searching for two children below the age of 10, a boy and his young sister. They simply left the house one day and had not been seen since. Evidence suggested they came from a perfectly ordinary family on good terms with one another, so the likelihood of them running away was slim. We mulled over the suspicion that they had been abducted for ransom early on, but not a single demand was made following their disappearance, so it was quickly ruled out. Despite a healthy amount of manpower that was coming from both sides, neither the guild nor the police had yet to find them. That said, the search so far had not proved entirely fruitless. Their last known location was fortunately established, and it was, unfortunately, a popular site for illicit drug trade. The working theory from there became that the siblings witnessed a transaction that were held, and they were held captive by the criminal parties involved as a result. If that held true, then the longer it took our parties to find them, the greater the danger their lives were in. The abductors wouldn't do anything right away. Murder was sure to leave trace evidence behind, but it was only a matter of time before they resorted to that or trafficking abroad to be rid of them. With each passing second, the odds of the children being returned unharmed were dropping to zero. At the same time, all of this was pure speculation on our part based on a single established location. For all we knew, this had nothing to do with the criminal underworld at all. The potential dangers thrown around made inaction an agonizing task, but if there was no evidence to go on, action was impossible. We could forcibly arrest any suspicious people on site and make them talk should we wish it, but that would be a direct violation of the Guild's code and its founding principles. The Bracer Guild always thought to be an ally of the people first and foremost, so resorting to criminal acts to obtain evidence was out of the question. If only this strict adherence to our code didn't stop us from being able to resolve so many crimes, thereby putting the people we swore to protect in danger, it was the ultimate impasse. As I found myself pondering on this impossible dilemma, the Bracers had placed themselves in a familiar face came to mind. He was a childhood friend with blue-tinged, unkempt hair. Though we had lost contact with one another some years before, he one day returned to the city as suddenly as he had left. Soon after starting up a peculiar profession that skirted the line of legality to a dangerous degree. The kind of profession that could easily involve himself in the affairs of many an unscrupulous individual, or so I believed. Just what did that idiot think he was doing? He walked out of my life without warning and walked back in much the same. I'd spent so much time searching for him. I knew our reunion would be an awkward one based on how we parted, but for him to return after all that waiting, all that searching, and dive into some questionable enterprise so different from my own was almost too much to bear. It gave rise to many concerns as a bracer, and many more concerns as a friend. And that one that bothered me most was... why hadn't he come to see me? Did he have any idea how worried I was about him? How worried I am about him? Irritation building, I took a large gulp of my cocktail, but the alcohol only fanned the flames of anger burning in my heart. They burned brighter and brighter still, becoming a dazzling white that projected countless transient images of the past. Then, just as quickly as it had flared, my anger faded in an instant, replacing itself with a very different emotion altogether. Why did you leave me? The words slipped from my mouth without me realizing it, making me feel downright pitiful once they were said. If someone were to see me in this state... You still haven't moved on, I see. A familiar but unexpected voice called out to me, causing me to jump slightly from surprise. I quickly regained my composure. I just have a few choice words I'd like to say. My response feigned calmness as best I could. I couldn't help but think I had more than a few choice words, really, but following up with that would aid my annoyance in a way I would rather not further. Excuse me. Oh, I imagine you have more than a few. Right, of course you would see right through me. The bespectacled man then sat down next to me, as though our running into each other was no coincidence. He was another childhood friend of both myself and the one I was lamenting over, and someone who followed a remarkably different career path from either one of us. If it's still bothering you that much, why not just go and see him? You already have his address by now, surely. How could I with how much time has passed? As I mumbled my response meekly, I thought I could hear the man next to me chuckle. Well, then I suppose there's no need to rush things. With your lines of work, I'm sure your paths will cross naturally in due time. I didn't expect that kind of response. This itchy schnoz is killing me down here. Dog hair. You make it sound so romantic. At least you have forgotten I don't struggle with expressing what's in my heart the way he did. Now, since we're here, how about a toast? I'll, make your next one non-alcoholic. And lest you have forgotten, I can handle my liquor just fine, thank you very much. We then spent the rest of our time reminiscing about the past. It had been too long since we were able to just sit and talk like this. It wasn't that he and I had become estranged, but both of our jobs made it a trying task to meet even at the best of times. By the way, I've heard you're turning down becoming an A-rank bracer again. Of course, I wouldn't escape the CID's ears. The information itself wasn't confidential, but that he already knew something, however unofficial it was entirely typical of him. The Bracer Guild focused on protecting civilians while the CID focused solely on the needs of the president in office. The groups were neither enemies nor allies. They simply had very different goals where work was concerned. I know it isn't my place to tell you to accept the offer. However, he paused before resuming, his tone becoming markedly more serious. In time, the times we live in demand a new hero. That much is clear. I had no idea what a realist like him was trying to say by implying I was a hero, but before I could inquire further, he changed to the subject that was likely what brought him to find me in the first place. Now, if you don't mind, I have something that will be of interest to you regarding those missing children. My eyes widened from the unexpected change, he continued. We've identified the group that made that district their turf, as well as have compelling evidence of a crime taking place. You may proceed as you like in cooperation with the police. I couldn't believe it. On a fine silver platter, he had given me just cause to act. And since the information came from the CID, there was no reason to doubt its veracity. I felt it. I was on the verge of rekindling my girlhood desires. All I had done till now was follow life where it was taking me. And yet here I found myself before a new path that could lead to that someone I once wanted to be. This deviation terrified me. What if it led me to losing someone again? What if it ended in more pain? My fear begged me to stay idle. I was a fragile human being at my core. I knew it well. It made me wish I was anything but. It inspired me to take up the sword and rebel against any whispers of weakness, and I played the part admirably on the surface. But if I were forced to face cruel reality in the future, I wondered, would my heart be able to take it? I love the Enforcer's theme so much. As I sidestepped to the left, I shifted my center of gravity and unleashed a fury of slashes against my first foe, using that momentum to thrust both myself and my blade toward my second. 2 low-ranking mobsters fell to the ground. They were members of a mafia I had been chasing, and right now, I was in the thick of their den of operations. My friend gave the guild and police the excuse we needed to take a more direct stance against our targets. His information was vague, however, so we still had to discern their precise location on our own. I, Zin, and several other bracers agreed it would be best to split our forces and attack several locations in unison for this part of our mission. Based on what just transpired, it appeared my location was the lucky winner. There's the intruder. Hey, I've seen her before. She's from the paper. 2 more reinforcements arrived, but I was hardly going to give them the time to act. I raced forward, swinging my sword twice as I passed them, and they fell before they could even raise their weapons. I advanced. Mobsters appeared in droves. Presumably, word of my arrival had already spread. There she is. She's that bracer word's been going on about. Well, damn it. What if the immovable's here too? Don't be chicken shit. It's one woman. We could take care of her. They then charged me in a mass, at least 10 of them, with more reinforcements on their way from farther inside the building. Forcing my way through with how many they had in their number was risky. I knew the sensible thing to do would be to wait for the other bracers to show, but I also had to consider, what if my waiting afforded the Mafia the time to wield the children as hostages? Weighing the 2 options, I concluded that whatever reduced the chances of their happening was worth the cost. I needed to push on and settle this, now. Besides, I believed I had nothing to fear from this pitiful group as they were. Were they seasoned combat veterans? They could have used their numerical advantage to implement complex formations and corner me, but they did no such thing. The amateurs. And they dared to believe they held a candle to Heiuei's martial arts? In the face of one of my experience, their bloated size was more of a hindrance than a help. They wouldn't be able to utilize even half of their potential against me. I first had to position myself and then appropriately. If I could ensure the gun-toting wielders among them were in each other's line of fire while rounding up the close-range fighters to a single spot, they would soon have bigger worries: friendly fire. Their vulnerabilities would then spell my victory as I cut them down. 1 down, 2 down. The precious seconds after defeating a foe were the most advantageous. Just as a man had fallen, I was on to another before they had time to adjust to my incoming blade. There was no pattern to who was next by design. I chose my targets with stunning erraticism, throwing them into complete disarray as more collapsed to the ground. 3 down, 4. I would go around them in a wide circle. I would move between them, while remaining ever aware of any surprise assaults at my back. I waded through them till I encountered the ones farthest back. These ones never even considered I would be able to reach them. They were spread so carelessly. The men took up their guns with newly alert panic strewn across their faces, but their fate was already sealed. They were powerless as I closed the gap between us. 5, 6, 7. With over half their number down, the remaining mobsters were quickly losing their will to counter. Some attacked out of adrenaline-induced desperation, calculating their next move so poorly that they fell into my long-set trap and accidentally attacked themselves. At this point, the battle was as good as final. All I had to do was continue taking them down till I was the last one standing. There were smaller groups I encountered on my way through the building, but I was able to disable them with little effort. The path they opened up for me eventually led me to their leader. He was a middle-aged fellow, pacing relentlessly around an unpleasantly gaudy room until I entered. He twitched in fear upon the very sight of me. "Why are you here? Where are my men?" Kissing the floors. I answered so calmly and concisely that he balked in disbelief. That's impossible. I sweat my balls off to build this group from the ground up, and you're saying a girl like you tore it all down just like that? I think it might be love. I've never even seen this woman, and yeah, could be. I ignored his crude language and drew closer. As I thrust my sword till it sat just between his eyes, he let out a squeal. "Well, I'm no ordinary girl, I'm a bracer. And don't worry, I didn't kill them. They have only been knocked out or restrained. You'll be seeing them soon again. You'll be seeing them again soon, in prison." I shot a darkened glare in his direction as the tip of my sword wandered downward to his neck. "Now I have some questions for you, and you will answer them." The man nodded emphatically, his whole body trembling from fear. "2 children, a boy and a girl under 10 years old, disappeared last month. Your people abducted them, didn't they?" He nodded. "I knew it. Then where are they? What did you do to them?" They're in a room farther inside. They're alive." At least I could breathe a sigh of relief. My most fundamental objective when coming here could be fulfilled. Next, I needed to ask him more about his group. "I thought you all seemed far too weak to be charged of this district of the city, to be charged of this district of the city. But after coming across your account book, everything fell into place. You're working on behalf of someone else, aren't you?" He was so unsure of how to respond that he fell completely silent. But that alone gave me my answer. "Who is it then? Tell me. Is it A?" I can't. He flinched in fear as I pressed him, resisting as though he genuinely couldn't say. Then, just as he opted his trembling lips to speak, I heard a strange thudding sound from outside the room. I stepped away from the man, my sword still firmly in hand. Crunching, squelching, splattering. More sounds. These more audible than the first. I didn't know what to make of them, but they made me feel an instinctive revulsion as they dragged on. They may have come accompanied by faint groans, but if they did, they faded just as soon as the sound themselves. I remained on guard as I stepped out into the hallway, ready to attack from any angle at any moment. And the sight that greeted me defied all imagination. The mobsters I fought through mere minutes were now nothing more than distorted, mutilated piles of flesh and bone? Not just one or two, every single one of them, without exception, had been reduced to bloodied mounds? Some were without heads, others had their organs ripped from their abdomens. Then there were those with their skulls caved in and leaking pulverized brain matter? Or the ones with their hearts pulled out and squeezed? Jesus, fuck, this got dark in a hurry. Each corpse was different. Each corpse was unbearable to look at. Holy fuck, dude. The plain hallway, traversed with all due speed, was now covered in a sticky, slimy red. Who could have done something like this? The sight was so awful that my free hand, now clenched, shook from disgust. When was it ever necessary to go this far? What could anyone have to gain from this? Wait, no. I realized I just made a very careless mistake. I turned and hurried back into the room I was just in. It was too late. The Mafia's leader was floating in the air at the center of the room as though some unknown force was holding him up by his chest. A monstrous sword pierced through his chest. A single streak of blood dripped from his unspeaking mouth. There was no room to believe he was anything but dead. Like all the others in the hallway, he didn't even have time to scream before his life was taken. Who are you? I barked at the center of the room, trying to drown out my instinctive fear with anger. At a glance, only the corpse and I were present, but if I strained my eyes, I could also see the faint contours of another distorting the space around them. It must have been some form of active camouflage. I would have thought it basic courtesy to give your name before asking another's, charming ace of the Bracer Guild. It was a man's voice that projected true arrogance, as though we were above all others as a matter of course. I instinctively readied myself for battle in response, but my actions seemed not to faze him in the slightest. No need to be spoiling for a fight. I'm simply here to take out the trash after they were careless enough to leave a trail for the CID to follow. Was I really talking to a fellow human being? How could he speak of such gruesome murders in those terms? Are you a business partner of theirs? No, you must be from the group above them. Very good. He then swung his blade to slide and toss the corpse off to the side with all the respect of a used cigarette. How could you treat people you worked with like this? People? Have you your ears? I said nothing about taking out a person, only trash. The same applies to the garbage piling up in the hallway. They have always been so, even before they stopped breathing. It was clear that communicating with someone of his nature was impossible. I dismissed calm reason for an intense, all-consuming anger so great that my entire body couldn't stop trembling. You monster! Before I knew it, I had sprung into action, pouting every drop of my strength into the blade to launch a swift, unavoidable strike. But he repelled it with one vertical swing of his own. This one exchange was enough to tell me that his strength was well a league above mine. He parried my blow at the most perfect instant, canceling out the force of my attack with so little effort that it barely scratched the surface of what he was capable of. The active camouflage did nothing to hide the monstrous nature of his cruciform sword either? Its design combined silver and black in an unholy fusion of darkness and light, as if chaos itself dwelled within its very blade. It was no common weapon. Even if I continued to give it my all, my odds of winning against him were extremely slim. But at the same time, my instincts were screaming at me, and I could not allow him to leave. I charged again. If attacking him from the front wasn't going to work, then I would have to go for his side. He blocked that attack with just as little effort. But I wasn't done yet. I refused to stop moving, slashing a third time with even more speed than the first two. Jesus Christ, dude. CFG, what's good, man? How are you? I showered him in a flurry of them, each one faster than the last. When I finally reached my physical limit, I darted in a new direction, attacking him from behind. I put my very soul into one overwhelming attack aimed directly at his rear, which I could only just make out through the camouflage's distortion. I got him. However, the second I became sure that victory was within my grasp, His cruciform blade carved a great arc through the air in a ferocious spinning slash. I was able to instantly defend myself against the blow, but the force of it sent me flying backward. I was fortunate enough to not have sustained a direct hit, but my body shook from now being able to fully cancel out its massive weight. Still, I forced myself back to my feet and glared at his form. The difference between us was night and day. Excuse me. It felt as though he could manipulate the very flow of battle, much like a master of martial arts who understood the true nature of all things. He paid no mind to my pitiful attempt at bravado and gave a short laugh before speaking. Impressive. You put up more of a fight than rumors had led me to believe. What's your goal? What are you trying to do with all your strength? I expected him to reject or ignore me, so I was taken back when he paused for a sincere moment of thought before answering. An interesting question. I suppose to instill fear. Fear? I almost doubted my ears. Fear is at the heart of all we know. Domination and servitude, order, harmony, and production. All of it exists because of fear. This is why I seek to instill fear in its purest form. Much like the retributive tower that appeared in Crossbell half a year ago. Such a pity that it fell. There was such pleasure in his words that it made it easy to imagine the expression on his veiled face. As insane as what he was saying sounded to me, I knew he meant every word of it. You really are a monster. Continue your fruitless attempts to stop me, and you'll understand what I mean in due time. Sky, thank you. I know I gotta stay hydrated. He lowered his blade. As a parting gift for assisting me in my house cleaning efforts, I will let you and those children go. Keep that far too pristine blade sharp for our next meeting, Bracer. With that, he turned to leave. Wait! Just as I extended my hand, the ground below him emitted a bright glow, and by the time that glow had faded, he was gone. He had likely used the same teleportation spell that certain other criminal organizations were known to rely on. His departure also released all the strength I had left in me, not from relief, but from the exact opposite. I was so overwhelmed with frustration that I let him leave, so afraid of what he might go on to do because I couldn't stop him that I lost the strength to even stand. Of course, this is just who I've always been. I haven't changed one bit since the day you left me. I'm still the same powerless girl I was back then. My work here wasn't finished yet. I walked to the next room. I opened the door and was greeted by what appeared to be an old storage space. There across the hall, I found who I was searching for. The brother and sister pair were crouched against the wall, the boy trembling on the floor as his sister stood close by. It's okay, I'm here to help. I kept my tone as gentle and reassuring as I was able. The girl smiled while her older brother continued to hide his face. I slowly walked toward them, careful not to make any sudden movements, but as I did, the boy shook his head vigorously. His whole body trembled more the closer I got, as though he were telling me to stay away. The answer from that man flashed in my mind. Fear is at the heart of all we know. These poor children were very much in fear's clutches. No matter how gradual I was in closing the distance between myself and the boy, trying my best not to provoke him, his body language showed he continued to reject me. We were now within arm's length of one another. His shaking grew more violent, and though he opened his mouth to speak, his voice refused to come out. It's all right. I smiled a most comforting smile. After that, I reached out behind me and grasped the blade of the knife that was being thrust toward me. I turned swiftly, my fingers never letting go, and found the one gripping the hilt to be none other than the sister. She had tiptoed around my back while I was kneeling to meet her brother and tried to stab me from behind. She was a bit startled by my halting her attack, but otherwise she stared blankly forward, emotion on her face nowhere to be seen. I suppose he was right about fear. It controls everything we do. You must have been through something terrifying if it made you resort to this. No doubt they were conditioned by fear to attack anyone who came to their rescue. I paid no mind to the blood from my bare hands slowly dripping to the floor. The cut from the knife was nothing compared to everything else in the moment. My nose is just... My first priority instead was to reassure the girl that I meant no harm. But we humans are capable of more than giving into that fear. We can fight it with courage. We can fight it. Your brother was doing that just now. He may have been gripped by fear, but he still fought his hardest through his actions to alert me of the danger his sister posed. Even if it took all he had, he wanted to keep me safe and to keep her from committing an irreversible, regrettable act. It was thanks to him that I noticed what she was trying to do. You don't have to be afraid anymore. I'm a bracer. I'll keep you safe. I took the girl into my arms. You're a bracer? Even her voice was devoid of emotion. That's right, I'm here to help you. Oh, I think I've seen you in a magazine before. Something Blade, I think? That's right, the nickname is a little embarrassing, but I'd be happy if you remembered it. That way, as long as you hear it, you'll know I'm here to keep you out of harm's way. I tightened my grip around her as if to stop anything more from hurting her and surround her heart with my warmth. It really will be okay, I promise. I noticed her eyes twitch just slightly, and before long, her eyes filled with tears. Soon she began to sniffle, at first a small one here and there, till they gradually grew more pronounced, eventually turning into uncontrollable sobs. She had finally been liberated from her fear. Damn. Oh, give me all the saxophone in the world! Jesus, dude! Dude, it's so goddamn good, man. Holy smokes. I would let this song take me out for supper, to wine and dine me, for sure. I'm powerless to its charm. As for me, I had stayed my course. I was too afraid to deviate from my current path. Still, I had chosen this path with pride in my heart. I didn't think it right to turn my back on it now. But I wasn't going to let it be an aimless journey from now on either. And so, it was another day in the Edith branch of Calvard's Guild. It sounds like that mafia was trying to copy what the other organization of assassins managed to pull off. I was discussing the recent case with Zin. The siblings had indeed been abducted because they witnessed an illegal transaction. The mafia involved then thought to mimic a group of assassins known for raising children with the intent of turning them into professional killers. Their attempts, thankfully, proved as unsuccessful as their attempts to remain covert in selling drugs. The CID found them, and whoever they were working for purged them. Hell of a way to go. If I hadn't been so incompetent, maybe they wouldn't have been purged at all. Don't beat yourself up about it. The guild's priority is to keep civilians safe, not criminals. I don't want to say they deserved it for getting involved in organized crime, but it is what it is. Try putting that frustration you're feeling into more personal growth instead of letting it eat you alive. I was told that while the siblings were going to need psychological counseling for some time, they were fully expected to recover and go back to their everyday lives. My meeting with them had triggered something inside of me. I came to realize that something needed to change. I had to take some kind of step forward. Excuse me. Even if it ended in me falling to the floor in some dramatic fashion, I just needed to pick myself back up again. With that in mind, I accepted my multiple recommendations. It's a color photo too? The times we live in demand a new hero. Dude, if she is the fucking main protagonist of Kuro, I am 100,000,000% on board. Everything I've learned about whoever the fuck she is in this story, bro, give me her a gajillion %. I might be in love. Beer, coffee, noble, a woman of the people. She's a fucking like, golly, dude, holy smokes. The times you live in demand a new hero. Doing so made me think of what my childhood friends said to me. I didn't believe I had what it took to be a hero. But if I could be even just a brief one able to give the people hope and banish the darkness ahead, then that was reason enough to keep going. Maybe that could make me somebody enough to fight alongside the real hero once they came to light. Well, shall we get down to business? Zin turned to face me, his classic broad grin even broader than usual. It'll be a while longer before the official paperwork arrives from headquarters, but I'm sure they won't mind me speeding up this part of the process with how much they wanted this. The Republic now has a bracer who reached A rank at the same age as the Empire's Purple Lightning. Congrats on your promotion, Elaine Eclair. Eclair. Beauty's Blade. Elaine Eclair, A rank bracer. Holy fuck, so Elaine Eclair. I think I might be in love with Elaine and I haven't even actually seen her. Like, I've seen a black and white side profile? Holy shit, dude. I'm telling you right now, the writing, it should be no fucking shocker that the writing is just immaculate, but this has been spectacular. Is this the... Okay, so hang on. And I don't want to get too far into this. I know we still need to finish this up, and I don't want this to lead into, like, Kuro talk. I'm sorry. Is this... So, Beauty's Blade, is this what... And I mean no disrespect when I ask this question either, so please, don't take it that way. Is this, like, the name change that a lot of people were fucking up in arms about? Beauty's Blade, is this what people were all bent out of shape? Okay, all right, I gotcha. It was originally Sword Maiden. See, I like either or, though. Well, I think either or fits. Enough time to squeeze in an hour of Kuro. Dude, jazzy. Beauty's Blade. Dude, honestly, I think either way, it's totally fine. That's just me, personally. Beauty's Blade? I dig it, though. It was so perfect, though, because I played on Leanne's own title as well. Kind of like Sword Maiden better, but that's just me. Like I said, if you were to flip a coin, I would be happy with either or. Yo. Elaine Eclair. Forward, sword in hand. They just didn't want to use Maiden again, I don't think. I could see that. But either way, like I said, I don't want to get like too far like into the weeds. I don't want to like ruffle any feathers. But like I think either or would be fine. And I think I might actually be in love with this person who I've never met before. Damn. Is someone not playing in English? I have no idea what the hell you're all talking. I'm sorry, dear. Dude. Does this daydream make you want to play Kuro tomorrow? It does, but I'm going to stick to my guns, and I'm not going to. As much as I want to. Steel Saint? Yo, that would be legit, too. Yeah, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait till English. But like, okay, but now, is it like, do I go back to the garden and there's gonna be something else? This absolutely made me more hyped for Kuro than I thought it would be, but alas, the wait begins. Yo, at least, you know, we're all amongst good company, right? We're all just on the wait train together. Return? Suspension of causality recording engine activity confirmed. Forced connection to Astrolink severed. The whirlpool of causality engulfing Erebos and the fated land has at last been unraveled. Though the bell ringing in the end of days has yet to be silenced, you, children of Zemuria, have earned your moment of peace until the time comes to face the final hour. Until you, with hope and fear in your hearts, must walk new trails. Yo, that was something else, dude. That was fantastic, dude. Much love and respect to you, Neo. It'll be worth the wait, brother. Thank you as always for the amazing streams. Yo, Kenshi, no thanks. No thanks necessary. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for, you know, allowing us to have this platform to do it, dude. Damn, that's a wrap, man. 3 hours and 13 minutes in total. Okay, so 131 hours. 131 hours to completely wrap Reverie. Well, I still have to do trial doors, but, you know. Yo, Sage, thank you very, very much. Yo, those were all pretty chunky game. Yeah, I mean, pretty chunky. And honestly, I got sent for a loop. I took the bait. I thought it was going to be shorter than what it was. I only did the difficulty on very easy for the last couple of daydreams, so, okay. A little bit of credit. Your time was 64 hours? Holy shit, dude. I know I'm bad, but am I that bad? 140 for platinum? Right on. Will Bill, that's it, dude. Reverie Corridor has its teeth in you. It really does. Yeah, I'll do trial doors in my own time this weekend. But, oh yeah, and I still gotta do more Vantage Masters. 229 and still playing Conan. Hell yeah, dog. 200 for the plat for you, Dark Fantasy Realm. Story is short. Reverie Corridor is what adds up. Yeah. 137 hours on very easy. Nothing wrong with that, dude. No shame in that game. But I got all the special accessories for everybody. I love that. Gonna head off to bed for a couple hours before work. See ya. Hey, Pod, have a good night, man. Gandalf, have a great night. Let's find somebody that we can go and see, that we can raid as we wrap things up here. And yeah, and get ready for East 8 starting tomorrow. We got Baku-san. We got Baku-san. Yeah, dog. Let's go see Baku for sure. Laburl done, Crossbell done, Erebonia done. Golly. Yeah, Dark Fantasy Realms, I'm really hoping I do. Yeah, East 8 Yami starting tomorrow night. Now we're going to Calvard. Like, and I can't wait, man. If I wasn't trying so hard to stay firm in my convictions to just wait for the English release, man, fucking A, that didn't make things any easier at all. Like, salivating. Doing these again the day before Kuro gonna be hype? Oh yeah. Yeah, we're definitely gonna do all of those like we did for Reverie. So we did 3 and 9 before we started Reverie. We're gonna do Beyond the Reverie again when we find out when we're gonna get Kuro. I was weak? No, dude, nothing weak about it, dude. Thanks for both the Crossbell and Erebonia sagas. Yo, Will Bill, thank you, man. Thank you to everybody. And again, I know I'll plug this here. We have a fantastic community Discord, lots of Trails love, plenty of culture, male or female. You know what I'm saying? You know, we're a family, dude. It goes beyond, you know, the stream. It talk games, talk food, talk life, man. So anybody and everybody, you're more than welcome to join if you would like to. Feel no obligation to do so, though. I just feel I would leave that there for anybody and everybody. So let's get this raid queued up for. Whoa, I can't spell. Hold on. For our wonderful friend Baku-san JRPG, his first playthrough of Persona 5 Royale, he is undertaking currently. And then I think this weekend we have a little Xeno talk that we're gonna do. I'm not sure if he's gonna stream it, if it's just gonna be within Discord. But if you have not met Baku, Weeb Supreme, handsome devil. But everybody, I can't thank you enough here live, any of the VODs, you know, over on YouTube. Thank you very, very much for watching. Always. Thank you for being here. Again, for allowing us to do this, man. I love doing this, and I'm very, very thankful for the opportunity. And that's a wrap on The Legend of Heroes Trails into Reverie. Done and done. Tomorrow we'll start East 8, same great time, same great place. I am going to withhold the nap. No nap. It's not happening. But for real, man, I hope everybody has a great Tuesday, a great start. You and yours, please, always, man. Stay as happy and as healthy as you can. Stay excellent. I love you guys. Thank you for everything, man, for real. We'll see you tomorrow, all right? You guys be good.